Councilmember Schneider,
Present.
Councilmember Oliver,
Present.
Councilmember Fung,
Here.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Here.
Mayor Oliva.
Here. Can
All
we
members
please,
of the City Council are present.
can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I'm looking for somebody in this audience. Christopher Del Negro, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
We lost him there. He got
We
muted.
lost him.
I think we all did it on our own though, if that counts.
Thank you, Christopher. Okay. Thank you. We have a presentation tonight, and I am going to pull it up 1 second, please. I was going to ask Ruben and Anders if you would like to make the presentation tonight, if you could read the proclamation. You want to start it, Ruben, and then Anders, you can finish it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Whereas International Women's Day is celebrated globally each year on March 8th and acts as a time to reflect upon the achievements of women and to celebrate their continued contributions to our society. And whereas women have been instrumental in shaping our country and community on all levels, continually bettering the communities they live in and serve. And whereas our country has been improved immeasurably by the contributions of women, however, they still face unique and persistent challenges with violence and prejudice continually undermining women's potential. And Anders, did you want to finish it off?
Sure. And whereas even with and often in spite of these persistent obstacles, women continue to lead their communities every day, playing a critical role in preserving the livelihood and culture of all people. And whereas International Women's Day highlights the impact and progress women have made towards advancing opportunities in our society and offer an opportunity to continue to fight for the rights of women and girls across the nation and the world. So now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim March 8th, 2022 as International Women's Day. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And there's several female Millbrae senior staff members, along with our council member Schneider and our Vice Mayor Pappen. And I'd like to acknowledge them in honor of International Women's Day. We have our city clerk, Elaine Tran, our administrator analysis, Wan Li Liang, our community development director, Darcy Smith, our recreation director, Mackenzie Brady, our recreation service manager, Hannah Moran, our environmental programs manager, Andrea Papajohn, our management analysis, Rose Velia, our senior civil engineer, Jane Cow, our senior accounting technician, Kathleen Murray, our police chief, Christina Corpus, CCFD Fire Marshal, Christina Reed, and CCFD Administrative Service Manager, Robina Alam. We have a lot of great women leaders. Elaine, excuse me, Joan, I missed you too, I'm sorry. Joan Casman, our city attorney. We have a lot of great women leaders, and happy March 8th, 2022 as International Women's Day. Thank you guys very much. City manager.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Tom Williams, City Manager. I'm having microphone problems, so I can't tell if my microphone is coming in and out. Can you hear me okay? Okay, if it goes out, just please let me know. I've been having problems with it this evening. So we're moving into agenda overview and a quick staff briefing On the agenda, under item number 2, we have our standard items, calendar of events, reports and bills and claims. Both of those are information items. We have report out of February 18th, 2022 from closed session, and report out of the February 22nd, 2022 closed session. Then we have approval of meeting minutes for the meeting of December 16th, 2021. We have no oral reports from city committees or commission chairs this evening. Then we move to public comment. Public comment is for any member of the public to address any item not on the agenda, any item that any member of the public not on the agenda would like to discuss with the city council. Times are limited to 3 minutes per person. Then we move to the consent calendar. There's 3 items on the consent calendar, starting with item number 5. Item number 5 is to receive and file the monthly general fund financial report for the period ending January 31st, 2022. The item number 6 is to adopt a resolution approving the second amendment to the employment agreement with the city manager. I would like to remove this item, Mayor and City Council, and move that to item number 11 under existing business. This is an item that was slated for existing business for just transparency purposes, but it ended up on the consent calendar. So I'd like to move that and re-agendize that as item number 11. Then item number 7 is to consider a resolution accepting the 2020 sanitary sewer mains cleaning and inspection project as complete and authorizing the filing for the notice of completion. That is an action item. Then we move into public hearing, item number 8. Item number 8 is the introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the city of Millbrae to amend the Millbrae Municipal Code by repealing and restating in its entirety chapter 2.35 entitled City Council by District Elections, providing for the election of members of the city council by 5 districts, and establishing the boundaries and identification numbers of each district, and establishing the election order of each district and related items. Then we move into existing business. Item number 9 is approval of the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory Analysis and Recommendations. Item number 10 is the Recreation Center Design and Construction Update and a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a budget amendment for large specimen trees, either a contract change order for the design build contract with Block Construction or award a contract to furnish and install the large specimen trees separately. A contract change order for the design build contract with Block Construction, increasing the project contingency by a not to exceed amount of $146,000 for engineered hardwood flooring installation, and increase the project contingency amount by $150,000, and that is an action item. There is no new business on the calendar this evening. Then we move into council comments and adjournment.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I just for the record want to be very clear that that one consent item, clearly the council never authorized that being on consent. As far as the city manager,
Yes, it was.
we were clear that that was not to be consent. So thank you.
Perfect. Now we have a report out from February 18th. Our city attorney, Ms. Casbin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 2 closed sessions for which I will report out right now. The first was a personnel closed session that took place on Friday, February 18th. There was no reportable action, but there will be action tonight, as was just discussed by the city manager in his report about this meeting and as commented upon by Councilman or Vice Mayor Gina Pappen. Regarding the proposed second amendment to the employment agreement for Mr. Williams. So no action on Friday, but this item has been placed on the agenda for tonight. The closed session that just preceded this meeting was a real property closed session. I was not a member of that session. Outside counsel was with the city council during that session, but I have been told by the city manager that there is no reportable action.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to the approval of minutes, the special meeting minutes of December 16th. Do we have a motion?
Happen to move approval.
A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Could we get a vote, please?
Councilmember Schneider,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council approves the special meeting minutes of December 16th, 2021 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to public communication. Anything that is not appearing on the agenda? Was there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Nathan. Thank you, Nathan.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to address council on tonight. I wanted to ask what the city's plans are for East Millbrae Avenue. I was tagged into a thread on Twitter regarding how unsafe that overpass crossing is. And I know that at a previous council meeting, I believe Margaret Ng mentioned that the overpass crossing is really dangerous. This is our best connection to the Bay Trail. It would be lovely if we could bike there, but I biked over the bridge this morning and it's pretty harrowing. The only reference that I could see to what the city has planned for this is in the active transportation plan. It claims that there's some kind of study going on. And it also suggests that several years ago, there was a plan to build a pedestrian overcrossing across 101. I think it would be nice to get something definitive on what is planned for this area. I reached out to the planning department actually, as suggested in the active transportation plan, and never received a response. I know they're busy with many things, but yeah, I think this is a high potential area that is currently quite hazardous, and it would be nice to know what the city has planned for this overcross. So once again, it's East Millbrae Avenue over 101. What is the plan for easier bicycle and pedestrian access to the bay from the west side of Millbrae? Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Is there any other hands up? I don't see anybody else.
Madam Mayor, you have Amy and Michael.
Amy, Laura, and Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see their hands. Can somebody read their name?
Michael
Hello,
Kelly.
it's Michael Kelly is looking to speak. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and City Council.
Thank you, Michael.
Is the clock going? That screen isn't populating for me. Did I start yet?
The clock is going.
Oh, great. Okay, this is going to be brief. Many of you know the great success that the Millbrae Leos have had in the community with their recycling plastic bags into park benches project. I'd like to put forward for consideration that maybe the board could invite more input from the public, but Safeway is one of the corporate partners and the Trex Corporation is the other corporate partner. Safeway has assisted us in processing almost 6,000 pounds of plastic. They signed up to do one project over 6 months for 500 pounds. They've run it all year and gone over by a full order of magnitude. Instead of 500, we're coming up on 6,000. I'm hoping that along with maybe acknowledging Trex, but some kind of city proclamation, just kind of acknowledging Safeway's participation as a kind of community business and the difference they've made. I believe at least 3, maybe 4 benches are already installed. Safeway saying, hey, this has been great, but we're really overwhelmed. We really don't know if we can keep doing it. So whether or not they can, I think it would be great for everyone's benefit to acknowledge Safeway formally, maybe again with some proclamation, allow them to maybe make a press release or some kind of, feel-good story out there and get some, maybe the folks at corporate to let the stores know, hey, you should all be doing this. It's great for all the communities. So I would respectfully request council would consider some type of official action recognizing both Millbrae Safeway and the Trex Corporation so we can really acknowledge their involvement and hopefully continue it, because about every 2 weeks there's another 500 pounds of plastic showing up at City Hall and we need to bring it somewhere. It's I I'm working on a relationship with Whole Foods. I manage the Leos on behalf of the Lions. I'm the Leos advisor. So a lot of it lands on me and bring my truck down to move it, but we need a place to take it to. So acknowledging Safeway and Trex, I think would go a long way to allowing the project to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing that to us. That I'm sure that we can fulfill that request some way, somehow, sometime. Am I missing somebody?
I would just say
Yes.
sooner is better than later. I'm so sorry. I know my minutes, but Mayor Annie, I know you said sooner, but if we could do sooner, we're really at a kind of tipping point on the calendar. So at the earliest opportunity, please. Thank you.
You got it. Amy, is your hand raised too, or is that Michael just coming? Okay. So I found their hand, but I don't see any others. I don't want to miss anybody. We're good to go?
No other hands, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the consent calendar, and item number 6 has been removed from this consent calendar. We have item number 5 to receive and file monthly general fund financial report for the period ending in January 31st, 2022. And we have item number 7, resolution accepting the 2020 sanitary sewer mains cleaning and inspection project as complete and authorizing a filing of notice of completion.
Move approval of 5 and 7.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Can we please have a vote?
Councilmember Schneider,
Aye.
Councilmember Holliber,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council approves consent items 5 and 7 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move item number 6 to existing business, which will lead us now to the public hearing. And I'd like to open up the public hearing, please. Opening up the public hearing, our acting city clerk, we have 2 well, go ahead, you can report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We did receive 2 public comments that were shared earlier with the city council regarding this item.
And as we open up this public hearing, do you want to introduce the interpreters for tonight?
Absolutely, yes. So we do have, for this public hearing item, interpretation services available in Mandarin and Spanish. I'll go ahead and call upon our Spanish translators, and can you please let the public know how they can access translation services in Spanish?
Hola, muy buenas noches. Bienvenidos a la reunión pública de la ciudad de Millbrae. Hoy estamos ofreciendo servicios de interpretación en español. Si ustedes lo requieren, por favor, vayan a la parte inferior de su pantalla. Van a ver ahí un globo terráqueo. Por favor, denle clic al globo terráqueo y elijan ahí el idioma español ahí. Y también pueden poner en mudo el audio original para que no se distraigan durante la audiencia pública. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Javier. Can I please call upon our Mandarin interpreters to please notify the public on how they can access translation services in Mandarin?
我们今晚提供普通话和西班牙语的成声传译服务。您可以找到并点击屏幕底部的翻译地球按钮，并根据所需的翻译服务在英语、中文和西班牙语之间切换。我们要求任何需要口译服务的人说话慢缓而清晰，以便口译员能够有效地进行翻译。谢谢。
Thank you, Prudence. Mayor, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So this public hearing is the introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the city of Millbrae to amend the Millbrae Municipal Code by repealing and restating in its entirety Chapter 2.35 entitled City Council by District Elections, providing for elections of members of the City Council by 5 districts, establishing the boundaries and the identification numbers of each district, establishing the election order of each district, and related actions. So I think that we will start with, do we have any sort of staff report to show the maps we'll be discussing tonight?
We do, Mayor. First, I would like to introduce our city attorney, either Joan Castman or a member of her staff. I don't see if Kim.
Kim is here. There he is. He just
Oh,
popped
there, and there's Kim. So they will provide a brief introduction, and then we will hand it over to Mr. Paul Mitchell from Redistricting Partners.
Thank you. And then we'll go to council comments, okay?
So Joan, would you like me to do it? So
Kim, hold on. I think, Eduardo, we have a PowerPoint presentation, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, let's get that up.
I'm happy to share on my end.
I think we added
great.
one slide, Paul, unless you got the.
Got it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, Kim, thank you.
great. If we could have the next slide, Tom. Yeah, so tonight the City Council has a number of things on the agenda with regard to this matter. And first is to take any additional public comment, ask any additional clarifications or for further information about the 5 draft maps that the city has been considering. And Mr. Mitchell is here from Redistricting Partners, and he's obviously going to be instrumental to that. Assuming that the City Council is comfortable, it could select a map tonight to comply with the city's March 1 deadline. And then the remaining things would be to think about, get public input on, and talk about the order of the elections. That is, once you have 5 districts, you'll have to decide which districts go in which election, because you do have a staggered election system in the city. So there'll be 2 districts that go in this November, and there'll be 3 districts that are on the ballot in the November 2024 general election. And then the City Council hopefully could tonight pick that ordering of the districts. And then with that, I turn it to Paul.
Thank you. Just to review for people who possibly are tuning in for the first time, we want to make sure that everybody has the same basic information about the process and how we're actually drawing districts. The process we're utilizing is a result of a California Voting Rights Act, and we're utilizing the California Voting Rights Act and the State's Fair Maps Act in combination to ensure that we're achieving redistricting that meets the high standards in terms of transparency, openness, and public engagement. When we draw districts, we can't just randomly start drawing. We need to look at several criteria that are used in the process. And the first is that districts are relatively equal size. By relatively equal size, we mean that the largest district and the smallest district are no more than 10% apart from each other in total population. In population, we're discussing the April 1st, 2020 decennial census. So it's not that they're equal in terms of eligible voters or registered voters, but in terms of total population. And that 10% buffer essentially means that you could have one district that's over by 5% and another district that's under by 5%. And that would be the 10% number. Or you could theoretically have one district that's over by 6%, as long as none of the other districts are over by more than 4%. So it's a 10% range of population. Districts need to be contiguous, meaning that they need to be whole parts. And if somebody wanted to go back and watch the video of our last hearing, we discussed some of these plans and the need to make some of these districts contiguous. And so in today's presentation, I'll be able to show how we've been able to ensure that in all of the plans. Districts need to maintain communities of interest. A community of interest is a socioeconomic or demographic group that has a shared interest and can be identified on a map, so geographically. So we're looking at groups that might have a shared interest in terms of the needs that they have coming forward to the city, or they're more rural, or they're more urban, or they are more concerned about transportation issues. Any of these things can define a community of interest. And the state law is pretty clear that the goal of the redistricting process is to identify these communities of interest so that they can be placed within one district or a couple districts in order to increase their effectiveness in terms of representation and voting power. So when we look at a community of interest and say, aha, we've got this great community of, let's say, cyclists. The goal is not to split all the cyclists up so that they're evenly distributed amongst all districts. The goal is to try to draw a district so that that community of interest can be better represented in one district. We want to follow existing boundaries, and a lot of local city redistricting is based on neighborhoods. And neighborhoods can sometimes be a little bit of a debate. If somebody was to watch back to one of our initial hearings, we talked about the neighborhoods and not only how they appeared, depending on where you look, but also how they related to each other. And those are critical parts of kind of the community of interest, is those neighborhoods. And then finally, we want to keep districts that are compact. Now, compactness in other states are the definition's different. In most parts of the country, they use mathematical methods of defining compactness. There are dozens of different theories of how you're supposed to do it and different math formulas to do that. In some states, in one state we worked in, I think it was New Mexico, they outlawed funny shapes. So I don't know who defines what a funny shape is, but that was what was in the state constitution. In California, we have a new definition. It's more of a qualitative definition that says that a district's compact as long as it's keeping nearby populations together. A district's not compact if it bypasses a bunch of nearby populations to go get some far away population. So when we look at districts, we want to see on the map that, oh, we are keeping these communities that are nearby populations together, not taking some population core and then like connecting it by a tether to some other population that's far away. When we look at the draft maps, I'm going to have for each of these maps a letter. That means that it's been elevated to be a map that we have gone through at redistricting partners to make sure that it meets the criteria. And for all these maps, we've provided a cover page, a data page, and then individual pages for each of the district maps. And so those are available on the website. Just as an overview, this map was based on a plan from Districtor numbered 101707 and has a total plan deviation of 8.2%. And this is the layout of this district, which has some elements that you'll see in future plans. But again, we went through a lot of conversations about each of these plans at prior hearings. These are the maps that have kind of made it to this somewhat of a final cut. So if there are more questions about why a plan was devised a certain way, there's a lot of testimony around what communities of interest are being preserved, around trying to maintain that population equality, trying to make sure that they're compact and nearby populations are together, and so on. This plan was 101707. We actually made some small adjustments to it to get it to be draft Plan F, just to make sure that all the census blocks were assigned and everything was proper. And when we look at that, like I said earlier, that's a total deviation of 8.2% in that district. In the bottom table, we look at the ethnic breakdown of what is essentially eligible voters. It's something called citizen voting age population. It's also a product of the US Census, but not the decennial census. And in that, we can see that there is one district, in this case, District 3, which when we look here, we can see on this southern end, that District 3 is at 54.8% citizen voting age population Asian. There are no districts that meet that 50% threshold to become a majority minority district among any of the Latino or African American populations, but clearly we have a large Asian population in the city, and all the districts in this plan are over 40% Asian, and one of them is at nearly 55% Asian based on that citizen voting age population. Map G was based on 110484, total deviation of 5.2%. Again, some of the same, some pieces that are similar in terms of the construction That's draft plan G, total population deviation of 5.2%. And again, it has one district that's at 56% Asian citizen voting age population. Draft plan H is based on 104,394. Now, in this one, we had a draft plan of this where District 3 in the original draft had a non-contiguous block. So we went ahead and conformed this to make it contiguous by splitting a census block here. And in our interpretation of the underlying populations, that there wasn't a population difference as a result of doing that. It was simply that the census had created a census block that created basically an island in the middle of a census block. So to bring that island into District 3, we did that to make it contiguous. Total population deviation of 4%. And again, one district that's at 51.5% Asian citizen voting age population. District Plan I was based on 101,627. And again, we did a change to the census geography to kind of make it fit. Total deviation of 4.8%. And in this map, if you looked at the original draft plan I, there was a section here, this square. I believe this is a high school. And so underneath the high school, there was an area that was dividing both sides of District 4. So District 4 was kind of on either side of this high school, but not touching. And so to make it touch and to make it touch in a way that wouldn't be considered point contiguous, we took a very small residential area with some small number of 20 or so homes and put it into this District 4. Now, I want to note, first off, that we're very hesitant generally to split census blocks unless it can be shown that it's really necessary to do it in order to meet some of the higher rank criteria, such as preserving communities of interest. The first reason why we're hesitant is that it ultimately does kind of break down the connection between the maps and the data. The census, as we discussed in one of our very early hearings, people think of the census as a number or set of numbers. But the census is not just a set of numbers, but it's also a geographic set of shapes. And it's the marriage of the numbers and the shapes that creates the full product of the US Census decennial file that's provided for redistricting. And so when you take one part of that formula and you say, well, I'm going to break these shapes, you now are creating a slight disconnect between those population numbers and each of these districts. So in effect, we don't have the same absolute sense of what the exact census numbers would be for Districts 4 and District 1. There is a small, there will be a small kind of error in the population numbers there, but we can work with your legal counsel to make sure that they're comfortable with it. We at Redistricting Partners are comfortable with it. And we don't feel as though, and we haven't heard any evidence that this is being done for some reason that wouldn't meet those other rank criteria. So where you won't see Redistricting Partners do a lot of census block splitting, in these two cases, they seem to be for the right reasons. Deviation in this plan of 4.8%. And again, one district, in this case, again, District 3, again, on the southern end at 55% Asian. District J is based on 103,586, a total plan deviation of 9.7%. When you see that high deviation, that high total plan deviation of 9.7%, I generally wouldn't suggest that you view that as anything but a threshold. If you're under 10%, you're okay. If you're over 10%, you would have to have an enormous rationale as to why that's necessary. We do see districts over 10% as an example on Hawaii, because creating districts that only take portions of islands in order to make a 10% deviation might not make sense. But we don't see that anywhere in California, any justification for going over 10%. So in this plan, we do have a higher total plan deviation of 9.7%. But again, I wouldn't view that as anything but kind of checking the box of being under a total 10% deviation. Now, we are at a phase, as was discussed, where it really is about selecting plans to go forward as a final plan. So I think that this slide, you can think more to what Kim mentioned earlier in terms of what your goals are here for that meeting. And with that, I'll go ahead and close this. But if we need to bring up any of the maps, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Paul. So with all the maps that were presented tonight, I'd like to hear from council with comments. And council, if you could, well, I'm not going to say be brief, but I do want to hear from public too. So I'm sure you all as well do. Can we start with Council Member Schneider?
Thank you, Mayor. There was a problem in the 5 maps that made it to the staff report. I very clearly at our last meeting expressed the need to bring 109-516 forward. Eduardo, if you can pull that map up, it is clearly in the recording, and it is also clearly understood that it would come forward, and yet it didn't on here. So this is, again, a map that was based on trying to keep neighborhoods consistent and as close to keep as many neighborhoods as possible in the same neighborhood on here, including some real problem areas. And the last time we talked about using either a study session or this meeting to look at how we might tweak and come up with the best maps. And we still have time for one more meeting if we need to do some tweaking. I think all 5 of the maps could be improved with tweaking on there, but this map wasn't included. So I would like this map to be included in the discussion. It has a deviation, I think, of 7% on there.
Paul,
But it keeps critical neighborhoods and with many based on, this map is actually based on most of the forms of communities of interest.
Paul, do you recall why this map was not?
Because it's not any of the maps that we were given. It's not any of the 5.
I know.
And if you go back and check the council meeting, it clearly says map 109-516.
So Paul, do you recall why this map was not considered tonight?
I don't know. I just searched my email to see if I had any mention of 109-516, and I'm sorry, but I didn't have any mention of that. So I must have missed it when we did our little post-meeting debrief to go over what maps we were going to be converting to what letters. So, but I will, could you hover over district number, the number where it says 5006? Hover over that. Does it say on your cursor? I don't see it showing up here, but does it say the deviation of that district? If you click on it.
When a member of the public pointed this out to me that it was missing, but it was clearly in the last meeting, I thought it said 7 point.
It says that as the maximum population deviation is 7 point, but whatever that was, 7.6, but that doesn't mean the total plan deviation is that. So the total plan.
Yes.
I'm looking online and I see slightly different boundaries and different numbers on 109-516.
Because I think they tweaked it, Councilman Holliber. They tweaked it based on what they heard said at the last meeting.
Okay, what I'm seeing, the deviation looks a little bit smaller.
The new one, the deviation is smaller.
Posted, yes.
It was, part of it is trying to give up a little bit of what it was to be able to keep Almanar, the Spur Trail, and Hillcrest, the 800 and 900 block of Hillcrest, and the 100 blocks of Elder. It's trying to keep the lower Highlands neighborhood together. Basically, not one map kept the Highlands neighborhood together. So it's kind of an understanding that Highlands is going to be separated. What's the best way to separate it that can at least keep the people that live in those portions of Highlands with a canyon in the way together?
So Councilmember Schneider, if you had the maps that were presented tonight, do you have a favorite?
This is my favorite.
Okay, could you have a second?
No.
Okay.
No, I was very specific about it 2 weeks ago that at least one of the maps two of the maps I hadn't seen because I had done all my homework on Monday and didn't even know there were new maps posted on Tuesday. So no. And in that flurry of our last council meeting, we put in map G and one of the other maps. And I think map I or J has been tweaked to get over the Cappuccino High School problem. But no, this is the map that to me keeps every neighborhood, almost every neighborhood intact.
Can we please
Of all
see
of
the
the maps.
deviations?
And by
Because-
neighborhood, I should say that it's committees, it's communities of interest. Within those
Understood, Beverly.
neighborhoods, they have a share of interests.
I think
We
they're
see
working
the
on
deviations,
deviation.
please,
Yes.
on this one.
So on what that was showing there was that if you do the yellow district, that's at -6% roughly. And if you do the green district, that's at +7.7. So that would be a total planned deviation of over 13%.
Maybe that was the tweaking done quickly, because again, the yellow district is already 400, greater than 400. And within a year, it's going to be up 3,000 people.
We cannot project.
We can have I understand the deviation now between the top and the bottom. Again, the person who did this map reached out to me. We ran over some numbers, but that doesn't mean it can't be tweaked to get that deviation under 10.
If I remember correctly, we had this conversation now that we've gone this far with this. And I think that's why this map.
This is the only map that keeps my neighborhood as one neighborhood. The Lower Highlands, it is the only one.
Okay, well, we have to consider all neighborhoods.
Yeah, but one neighborhood should not be the butt of everybody else.
Nobody's looking for that.
Then it just won't be a 5-0 vote, Annie, that's all.
Okay, can we have somebody else on council with comments? Favorites?
So
Mayor,
Paul, I just,
excuse, can I do Vice Mayor? Pappen?
please, sorry, go ahead.
Anders, I'll go with you next, okay?
Looking at the maps that have been presented here, and again, it's like no one is happy about this entire process. I'm looking at one map here where my neighborhood is not maintained or intact, but I will say map G, I think, includes districts which actually make representation a little more balanced. In other words, it includes a district that has part of the downtown, part of the apartment areas, even crosses over, District 4 crosses over to El Camino. So you're getting a representative who has a portion of that. Then District 5. So in looking at Plan G, I'm hoping, and again, I'm open here. I didn't draw any of these maps, that this type of representation would make the council members, as we are all supposed to be, a little more balanced in how things happen throughout the city. So it seems to divide things up in a way that I like, because you've got the downtown in 3 different districts, it looks like. So I think that's important. And you've also divided up kind of the apartments and the residential in different districts. So at this point in time, G, you have F up there right now. So G is the one I'm talking about. Yeah. So I'm leaning towards this as a preference at this point in time, understanding my neighborhood is not maintained there. It's just, it's difficult. So this would be my preference at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I went through all these 5 maps in great detail again for the last week. And I also, as Councilmember Schneider was presenting her map, also look at that as well. First of all, I will say I appreciate what Councilmember Schneider has brought forward. And I do understand that, all the map has Highland divided somehow, but we're looking for the best alternative here. I mean, understanding that nobody's happy about, dividing up our city 5 ways or in any way, shape, or form. But it has to be done, and it has to be done before March 1st. So the map that Councilmember Schneider brought up, it's got a 13% population deviation. So legally speaking, we really cannot select that map. So that's number 1. Number 2, on map F, as well as map J, they have a population deviation above 8 and 9% respectively. So I think, as Paul was presenting earlier, I think one of the goals that we wanted to achieve here is to ensure that all these districts are relatively equal in terms of population size, so that each district and each council member represent a relatively equal amount of population. So I think that's a priority. Those 2 maps being, on the higher side, I sort of think that there are better alternatives to those 2 maps. I also look at map H. It's got a decent population deviation, but some of the community interests like the Mills Estate is being divided, and the Highland also being divided into more than 2 districts on that map. So that's relatively unfair to these communities of interest. The transit area there is very vital to our city in terms of the future of our city. So I think it deserves more representation and more attention there than just 1 council member. So, that's kind of my observation there. And I think there are better alternatives to H. In terms of map I, again, the transit area is so vital, it should get more representation. East of El Camino Real should have greater opportunities to elect leaders to represent our city as well. So right there, right now, D2 represented in green here is entirely encompassed of the east side, plus a portion, a very thin, narrow portion of the west side. Now D2, D4 seems to deserve a little bit more natural contour of the boundary line here, I think. So, I think the compactness of these district is also important, as being discussed a little earlier by our redistricting partner consultant. So in looking at all of that, and I go back to Plan G, it seems to check most of the boxes in terms of maintaining the communities of interest, giving residents of our east side 3 unique opportunities to elect leaders to represent our cities. The downtown would be represented by 3 council members, and it keeps most of the communities of interest together. I do understand that Highland will still be divided, but at least it's divided between sort of the upper hillside versus those who are more to the downtown, which has somewhat different characteristics in terms of the wants and needs and the traffic patterns. So I think at this point, looking at map G, it seems to be the most balanced of the 5. And I think it will serve our city well moving forward here. So, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for your explanation of how these all work for you in your mind. It's such a difficult task. Remind everybody that's listening. It's been grueling for everybody. Councilmember Oliver.
Yes, thank you. I think it's been said, nobody is happy that we are in this position. I don't think any of us are supportive of district elections, and certainly none of these maps are perfect. I don't think everyone's going to be happy with any of them. I think I go back to our decision that we made back in December, where the council decided to go with 5 districts instead of 4 districts. And I think there's pros and cons of having an elected mayor versus a rotating mayor. But I think this process would have been a lot easier. And I think many of us would be more happy with the maps if we were only had to divide Millbrae in 4 ways instead of into 5 ways. But we're here at this point, and I, at this point, am leaning towards, I think, both maps G and H for many of the reasons that have been said. These maps both have multiple districts that touch the downtown and the El Camino corridor. They both have districts that touch both the east and west side that integrate neighborhoods in Millbrae together. And then the deviations are fairly low as well. Some of the other maps, in terms of what I didn't think was great about them, map F, and it creates a couple of districts that are sort of bizarre looking, such as District 4. Is not particularly compact. Map I think creates a few districts that are very not compact. And map J, as well as the map that Councilmember Schneider brought up moments ago, I think both use looks like the El Camino or Broadway kind of as the dividing lines, and don't really integrate neighborhoods on the east and west side of El Camino into one district. So maps G and H, I like it because they do combine neighborhoods that are both renters and single family and multifamily housing into districts as opposed to keeping them separate. So I think those two are very inclusive. That's where I'm ending at this time.
Thank you, Councilman Holber. And thank you for reminding everybody that we don't always win the votes, right? It's a 3-2 vote with at-large mayor. And here we are today, and we need to decide on a map.
Mayor.
And I just want to make it perfectly clear that to the audience that we have to pick the best of each evil, because nobody here wants to pick a map. And so with that being said, I can't express how much time, energy, and effort from our consultants to the professionals to our staff and to this council. They put their heart and soul into this. So I just want to take a minute to appreciate the hard work that's gone into this for something that we could have most definitely spent better time and energy on something else for our city. But here we are, and I hear some sort of consensus. And
Mayor, I'm sorry.
No,
Map G divides the Lower Highlands.
I'm speaking. Councilmember Schneider, I am.
My hand.
Everybody got a turn, and we are going to go.
Yeah, and we're deciding 10 years of stuff based on 6 goddamn minutes.
Excuse me. We are going to go to public comment now, and I'm going to open it up to the public, please.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
We haven't heard from you yet.
Oh, well, I did I honestly, I'm not going to repeat everything that was said, but my first choice on map is going to be on map G. And for all the reasons that everybody has described, and Ruben, I'll say the same thing that you said. And I was the second vote on dividing it into 4 instead of 5, but here we are. And there's been a lot of great work, hard work, a lot of thought. And when it comes down to everybody's comments, mine really are pretty similar to those that are map G. That would be the one I picked, but I really would like to hear from the public now, please. I think that's Michael Kelly and Amy Lauer first.
They're muted.
You guys are muted.
Of course we are, because we just learned about the pandemic and Zoom. Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam Mayor and esteemed council members. I wanted to share some perspective, both from the community members I've heard from, and then wearing the Anti-Racist Coalition hat, of which I'm an active member. It would be really helpful, I think, and I know the vote's coming up. It has to be decided in the next 6-7 days, I think, by the 30th, or excuse me, by the 1st. It would be really helpful to make sure that the concept that Paul Mitchell had put up in the slide to prevent gerrymandering it'd be really useful to see where each council member lives in the respective maps that they're kind of endorsing, just so we as the public can say, hey, are there any kind of self-interest being served there and how our elected representatives are voting? Not that that would necessarily change your minds, but it would be helpful for the public to see where, if, for example, conveniently, each one of the 5 of you ends up in a new zone. Maybe you don't, maybe you do, but that would be a useful data point. So maybe you could consider that and sharing it with the public. The other part I want to talk about is when you're talking about G, and I know Councilman Fung had described that the objective is kind of like spreading things out equally, but that seems to me to be counter to what the objective is of keeping a community of interest together. So when you look at G and Area 5, 1 out of every 9 or so people in Millbrae is Hispanic, according to the census data. And the majority of those seem to live on the other side of El Camino. But in expanding Section 5 across to the west side of El Camino, it dilutes the Hispanic vote. So it doesn't necessarily mean Hispanics have a majority anywhere, but they have less of a voice if you dilute where most of the Hispanic and Latino population lives. So it seems to me to be counter to what this whole community of interest approach is supposed to be. I'm also a little bit concerned about why we would split downtown up into 3 districts. It seems to me downtown should be in 1 district. This is me as a single voter, single citizen. It's just my opinion, but it seems to me that those are the kind of things that we're looking to get answers around, and what the objectives are. If a community of interest isn't just making everything equal everywhere and spreading it out so there's the same representation, because we classically have underrepresentation of communities that are minority. So that's what I wanted to share with that respectful request. I appreciate that we all get to talk about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nathan.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this important matter. I wanted to emphasize that I really think that the council needs to take as much time as it needs to deliberately evaluate these maps. In my experience in the County District Advisory Commission, there was a strong desire to, get the process done with. And I think that really made me feel a little bit uncomfortable with the process and how rushed it felt. So I would encourage the council to take as much time as is needed to do this deliberately. And, I know I've seen the council rush to schedule meetings on issues like the SB 9 urgency ordinance. So I know it is possible for you all to find time to deliberate on matters of importance. So I think this definitely deserves that. I wanted to bring to your attention draft map I, both which was submitted by Joe Teresi. So both Joe and I actually tried to fix the census block split issue, try to work around it. And we actually more or less converged on the same map, which has the district RID 111357. And I think this combines most of the good elements of the original draft I, while avoiding having to deal with the split census block and what the can of worms that might open. So I would suggest you take a closer look at the modification of that map, see if it is worthy of a tweak and update to map I. And I think map I with this tweak is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. So now that we've heard from public and, oh, I'm sorry, we have Joe Teresi. Joe? Joe?
Thank you. Yeah. I just want to follow up on what Nathan just said. I was really concerned about the fact that on the map we had to split up a census block. So I worked hard to try to figure out a way to make that work. And as Nathan indicated, that map 111357, I would ask maybe at least it could be shown on the screen and looked at, it accomplishes the same thing that I was originally striving for, which was to maximize the integrity of individual neighborhoods. And it did have what I thought was a rather innovative feature of combining the apartment zone along Richmond Drive with the east of El Camino Real area. It has a maximum deviation of 8.47%, so it falls within the 10%. And it works without having to split the census block. So I would ask that maybe at least it'd be shown on the screen one more time and considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Jean Wong. Jean Wong.
Sorry, my apologies. I was on mute. Good evening, Mayor Oliva and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm also in agreement with Nathan Chan's comments. I feel that the mapping process started on the right foot, but all of a sudden it came to this massive rush to reach a decision. Like Nathan, I really support council taking a better look at map I. I think that it does the best job in keeping the integrity of the existing neighborhoods than the other maps. And to Joe's point, I really, if you haven't had the opportunity to look at his new map, his new version of map I, it really is a, I think it accomplishes everything that certainly that I would want. And I think what the various council members have been talking about, it's more compact. It smooths out many of the rough edges that were contained in the original map I by moving around a couple of census blocks between districts. And it also, as he said, eliminates the need to break up a census block. So I really would like to suggest that council consider the possibility of one last public meeting so that there's an opportunity to really dive into map I and as well as map G. And then hopefully come up with a map that truly takes the best elements from both of these maps, which I think seems to be the most popular, at least with the attendees of this meeting. So thank you very much for your consideration and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Jean. Amy, is your hand up?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, thank you. This is the first time I've talked in one of these hearings, and I did put forward a map. I was well tutored by someone who knows a lot about map drawing. I want to let you know that my approach was one of the people. You may not know, but most mornings, our city manager knows this, I'm out there walking the streets of Millbrae. I see where parents walk their children, guardians walk their children to school, older children are on bicycles and scooters on their own, high schoolers who are busy on their phones getting themselves to mills. I see where people go. I see how they face traffic. I see where the trash falls. And based on walking the streets of Millbrae, I understand what brings people together. It's the day-to-day of their lives. And my concern about some of the maps is these do not reflect the traffic patterns and the daily lives of the citizens of Millbrae. Although I submitted one of the maps, I very wholeheartedly support map I, which I did not do, because it most closely reflects the patterns of our city and what is really needed in terms of representation to make sure our parks, our streets, our schools, our families are safe and feel well represented. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Christopher?
Yes, hi. I think my audio is working now since earlier when I was trying to help out the pledge, I switched computers. I want to point out to the issue of compactness. And I do appreciate from other members of the public about I and trying to find these common communities, but it's really not compact. I mean, these long fingers are stretching across the city, trying to find communities that align. I think Ruben pointed that out earlier as well, Councilman Halber. Jay also kind of appears to skirt that criteria by reaching around trying to find things. F, G, and H seem the only ones that are reasonably compact in that argument. And also, I know we talked about the Asian population. I guess every single one of these maps has a district with a majority minority Asian population. But really, honestly, there's only 2 maps here that try to retain what appears to be our Latino population, and that really is H and I. H has a 17% Asian voter population, and I has a 16.5%. F is 14.5, and G is the lowest at 13.1%. And I know that's a very big community of interest, and for the CVRA as well. It appears that a couple of them start diluting down the Latino population. Now, when I created map H, it was really around trying to avoid diluting down that population in one community of interest, and that was on the 3rd district up in the airport park and the Marina Vista, which has a common interest there. I also want to point out from a school's perspective that F, G, and I all have a district that has no vested interest in any school within its district, whereas both H and J do have at least one school within every district. And that's a big issue for me, is making sure that we at least have a common interest between all of our council members in all of our districts in our schools that are within Millbrae. And of course, parks are also not evenly distributed across all of these maps. I would pay attention to that. When I did create H, it was an effort to actually divide up our resources, our parks as well, to go along with these communities. Parks are centers of gravity for communities. So I guess those are the issues I really want to point out is, the compactness is a major issue. I and J do not appear to be compact, although I appreciate what they're trying to attempt. That's it for me.
Thank you, Chris. Jake Caruso.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members, as well as the City Manager. Like many people that have spoken tonight, I want to again emphasize maintaining the communities of interest. And to me, it clearly is H and I that represent that. There were some other objectives that I heard mentioned tonight with respect to, for example, having every district touch El Camino or touch the downtown area, or, trying to hope a certain group gets elected. Those I don't think are mentioned in the criteria that we, were put forth to consider. I think, a lot of it is objective, and I think all of these plans meet the objective portion. The one part that is somewhat subjective is the community of interest. And for someone, as I'd mentioned in the previous meeting, who is, arrived in Millbrae as a 4-year-old 50 years ago, I have walked all of these neighborhoods, and I could strongly say that the reality is that, map I best represents the communities of interest, whether or not the shape is somewhat irregular or not. If you look at what people, what's important to the people in the various areas, I think it's most represented in map I, as far as people having things that are commonly important to them. So I appreciate your time for allowing all of us input, and I think we've heard some great comments from community members tonight of people that are actually out, walking the streets and living the wonderful life that we have in Millbrae. So thank you.
Thank you. And I would 100% agree. Thank everybody for their comments and their concerns. City Manager, just for the sake of my own conscience, have we gone over and above the amount of meetings and special meetings and workshops that were required?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In total, there were 5 public hearings that were required, 2 on the maps themselves. We've had a total of 7 on the maps, plus every weekend we've had an open house for the community to come in, ask questions, draw their maps once we receive the mapping software. We've been out at the farmers market a couple of weekends, the Lunar New Year Festival. Plus we have the dedicated website, Configure Millbrae, .org. So yes, I would say, the good news on this is nobody's come to the city council and said, we didn't know about it. We didn't hear about it. So, I mean, in terms of getting the word out and the effort to get the information out, yeah, I think we've accomplished that and more.
Thank you. And then I just want to make it clear for those that are listening and for the respect of those that worked on this. Joe Teresi's map was distributed to council prior to this meeting. So I want to make sure that he knows, and there was, a handful of speakers that were in support of looking at that map. I don't know if we can put that map up, but I want Joe to know that his work was not dismissed. It was looked upon by all of us. And if there's nobody else from the public, I will go back to council. It looks like Council Member Schneider has another comment.
Questions then, clarification. I'm looking at Plan G or Map G. What community of concern does the east side of El Camino Real share with one of the lower highlands being divided into 3 parts in this section? To me, that means that poor little neighborhood that has been so ignored will again continue to be ignored. The fact that it also happens to be where the losing candidate from the last election lived, I have no idea if that's the reason why it was parked out into there. I guess if we have to look at these maps, and again, I would prefer that we go through one more version of this and look at these and try to tweak the numbers down. I would be what I've just heard the public say, which is J, or I can't tell with H what really happens. My problem with H is I don't think it gives Bayside Manor the chance to elect someone. Although maybe when all the new population is over there, then it will prevent anybody from being elected on the west side of El Camino Real. It's just weird to separate it. I would prefer to keep Marina Vista and Bayside Manor together, which I guess is map J.
Okay, well, I would like to go on the record saying that this should have nothing to do with elections and electing people. This is representation. And I know there was public comment on where do these electeds live. It has nothing to do with how we would divide up our city. We hired professionals to help us. And the census is the driving force to this. The fact that we have to divide up, I could only imagine that we could all live in one district, and it should not matter how we divide up. So I want to keep the elections and the electeds out of this. We need to find good leaders in these new districts to represent their district and our city together.
And you missed my main point, Mayor.
I didn't miss anything.
The east side of El Camino Real, with no parks, with nothing but noise from multiple sources, no trees, no architectural style to any of the streets over there, separated from the rest of Hemlock, it's one shared street, have to do with anything in common on the other side of El Camino Real. There's no community of concern there. There's no community of interest. There's no shared interest there. It was plopped in there to make numbers match. And again, more important than the numbers on these maps are communities of interest and shared interests that will feel and work as neighborhoods. I agree with you, the point, the problem, the downside of these, and that some of the cities that have already gone to district are finding no one applying to run in a district, and or only one person, therefore they're running a non-competitive race, and they simply they don't even have to run a race, they get appointed. I agree with you completely, but this map G does not keep communities of interest. I guess I go back to Commissioner Del Negro's comment that at least one of the other maps keeps 2 large Latino populations together. I on that one, if I got it correctly.
Okay, Councilmember Pappen. Excuse me, Vice Mayor Pappen.
whatever. Thank you. Yeah, and can we hear from Mr. Mitchell as to, I believe there are strict rules about existing council members. None of us have written any of these maps. So, Mr. Mitchell, can you clarify for the listening public?
Absolutely. The Fair Maps Act lists criteria and it ranks them. You need to have districts that first have equal size, meet the Federal Voting Rights Act, and then it goes down the list of communities of interest, preserving neighborhoods, all the way down the lowest ranked criteria is compactness. Then it does say what things you cannot include as a community of interest. You cannot include political party, candidates, or homes of incumbents. And so we're very grateful to say that all the clients that we've worked with in all of our cities and counties, we've been diligent about following the Fair Maps Act, and we do not know where any council members live. And so that is not a part of the process that we've utilized in any of this. And honestly, I haven't even heard anything that where I could glean where an incumbent lives.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I do need some sort of clarification, please. So I have reviewed several of the maps here. I think what was suggested tonight is that what was map I has recently been modified. Is that, given Nathan's comment and Joe's comment, is the map I that I have in front of me, was that changed somewhat? Because they mentioned number 111357. Can we bring that up so we can see? I did that because this has another map number on the one that I reviewed. So I'd be interested in seeing that. There it is. So, whoop, wait a minute here. Okay, so yeah, we didn't. It looks like it was changed somewhat. This is what happens when we, get new numbers. People say I, people say this, that, and the other thing. So I did not get an opportunity to look at that. My concern here, and I greatly appreciate all the comments of the public here. And please know that if you've run for city council, we've walked every single neighborhood and every single community here. And that's one of the most rewarding things I have to say about running for council, is really talking to people in different neighborhoods, talking to people within the community. That's the most rewarding part of really running citywide. And we are a smaller city. So that, I think, whoever runs in the future here, it's almost sad that they don't get an opportunity to really talk to everyone they can within the city here. And that includes every neighborhood here. I mean, I'm hoping that we get representation from individuals who are going to represent the entirety of all 5 of these districts. So nothing has been rushed here. I would like to take a closer look at this map, and did we see another one that qualifies for within the standards? So, I mean, I don't mind having one more meeting because this is important, but please know we have looked at a whole bunch of maps here, and they're going to be, we're trying to do the best we can here. It is important to me that communities of interest are represented, but we are not isolated. Like, one district has all the apartments, and one district just has single family homes, and one district to me, it's more diverse and more inclusive if you're representing part of downtown, part of this El Camino, and then it's split up. To me, I think that's important because it gives you an appreciation of how the city operates, how people live in certain areas, and how to represent. So those are my comments at this point in time. I would like to take a closer look at this one. It would not have to be, it can't be I, has to be another letter now. And again, I really want to stay away from naming these after people because I think that's not a good idea here. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into these, but if we could take a look at this more closely, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
And I thank you, Vice Mayor. I would just want to comment. I think we did look at this and there was a reason that some of the numbers were off on this. Paul, didn't we talk about the yellow zone or something?
That was on a different map.
Okay.
This map does meet the total plan deviation. The big difference here with this map is different from the current version of I, is that District 4, which would be this dark green district, it takes in the entire country club area and the area to the north of that. In doing so, it pulls a little bit north in that blue district, which is district number 1, kind of pushes up towards El Camino. And that's the main difference between those two maps, is that relationship there with that district that is on the PDF maps, district number 4.
Real quick, Madam Mayor, there was I think there was some public feedback. It was like map F, some residents from.
Before we go to that, Gina, did you get your explanation to the last map?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to take a look at that, but when you say that the new, yeah, see, is that F or whatever? See this one that's up there now, the new one? I think we did get some comments from the neighbors up in the District 4 there that were not happy about that, and I'm not sure why, but the new
We
one,
have to break up neighborhoods.
was that it? Yeah, I didn't, but you know, the public means there, that one. Yeah, I think from what I understood, some negative comments came in from residents in District 4. They didn't like the way it came down, but I don't know.
Vice Mayor, if I may, what I heard was that they didn't see a relationship between the houses sitting up on the hill and the houses that were more flat land. I look at that and say, they all have to deal with Helen Drive, which can be pretty horrible with traffic. But that was what I heard. We don't have anything similar with the Flatlanders.
I'm
Madam Mayor?
a little confused about
Yes.
that.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, yes, please, Councilmember.
Madam Mayor,
yes.
Thank you. Can we bring back the map that was just the latest unlettered map? We can bring it back on the screen again. Okay, there you go. First of all, can you put some numbers on that? Each and every one of these 5 districts, so that instead of using color.
Oh, I'm not sure if I'm able to do that.
On the data layers tab, if you click the data layers tab and then click on show numbering.
There we are. Okay. All right. It's a little difficult to see it the first time. Try to understand all the communities of interest in the neighborhood where the dividing lines are happening to be. But it did seem like the highlands being chopped up in more than 2 ways. And I'm trying to draw connections between the northwestern part of the city, the Meadows, versus those that are down in Richmond Drive. I'm having a hard time understanding how these neighborhoods are connected. And it seems like there's sort of a grab, with a thin layer of going down on District 1 here, same similar thing on District 2. Can we look at the populations tab? And is there a way to look at the voter age populations and where is that? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, both. If you can open up both, yeah. I mean, this is the first time I look at this, so it's a little difficult to try to do this on the fly here, Madam Mayor.
We have time.
Yeah, I think I looked at no less than 30, 40 maps in the last 2 months. I think I certainly have seen maps that are better than this in terms of how it balances out each neighborhood and the communities of interest, well-established communities of interest that we have. And I look at the population count. Yeah, and then look at District 4, how it has really sort of a thin layer going on the northern end of the city. I think if you look at sort of the compactness test, this certainly isn't one of my top choices. If you look at how District 4, District 1, and 2 interact with each other. Those are my comments by looking at this map.
Thank you. Councilmember Holliber.
Yeah, thank you. I have similar comments. I think in terms of this map, I think it's a little bit better than what was originally presented as map I. However, I think it still has issues with compactness, particularly with Districts 1 and District 2, those narrow strips next to each other around Helen, Anita Drive. So I would not support evaluating this. And my understanding is if we want to evaluate new maps at this point, we would need at least another meeting and a 7-day notice. So I would not support bringing this back at another meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember. With those comments, do we have a motion to go forward, a motion to regroup?
Mayor, Mayor, a question. This map, which we think is a version of I or a version of J?
I was told it's a version of I.
Okay, so in terms of the 7-day notice, and what we talked about at the previous council meeting was the ability to tweak to try to come up with something that really works. Could we use I.1 or I.2 by Monday?
We don't have 3 council members wanting to do that, Councilmember Schneider.
So really it would just be Gina and I trying to open up and have a little bit more time to tweak whatever the maps are, the top 3 maps.
Well, that wasn't the request. The request was for this map. And Gina
Well, but this map
Gina
is like
was-
I.1.
Gina was very specific to this map, not to tweak other maps. Is that correct, Vice Mayor? And I don't think we have 3 votes for that.
That is correct.
You know, we do have, I'm not sure if this hand is old, but Joe Teresi, I'd like to give him the respect if he still has a comment. Are you okay with that, Council?
Yeah, can we leave this one up though while he's commenting?
Okay, so I'm going to open up a can of worms here because now Gene Wong's hand's up. Go ahead, Joe, you go first. Gene, you're up next.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I just, one thing I wanted to clarify, what changed from original map I to this new iteration is that the large census block that surrounds the Green Hills Country Club was moved from District 1 to District 4, and then the Meadow Glen neighborhood was moved from District 4 to into District 1 in order to balance the populations. Also, I have some exhibits that I don't know if you would want to see them, but I have some exhibits that I prepared that demonstrate how I think this map holds together various communities of interest. If you'd like to see that, if you would allow me to share my screen, I could show you the sort of the rationale behind this latest iteration of the map, if you'd like to see it.
Sure.
I don't know how to help you with that, Joe. I'm sorry.
Give them.
Eduardo, if you stop sharing this screen, and then Mr. Teresi can simply share his screen.
Can you see that?
Yes, Joe, we see it.
So this is District 1. I call it the Western District. Well, first of all, I should say that the underlying colors that you see on the map are the neighborhoods of Millbrae. Now, I know some people have said that the neighborhoods are arbitrary, but I would disagree. I think the neighborhoods, as reflected on this map, show the pattern under which the city of Millbrae was subdivided and developed. And each of these neighborhoods has its own characteristics of architecture and age of construction. So I think these neighborhoods are actually important. So in District 1, which I'm calling the Western District, it includes Millbrae Meadows, which you can see here, and Glenview Highlands here, the Upper Silver Ranch or Telescope Hills, and the upper portion of Millbrae Highlands north of Hillcrest, along with Meadow Glen. So you can see all these neighborhoods are more or less intact. I would say that for this District 1, the communities of interest they're all around Meadows School. They might have issues with blocked views that you have in the upper hills areas. You have issues with slope stability and wildfire risk are all associated with those upper parts of the city. This is my District 2, the Eastern District, which consists again of intact neighborhoods of Bayside Manor, Merino Vista, Millbrae Manor, Millbrae Park, Airport Park, the area of the two TOD projects, along with the Richmond Drive corridor. The communities of interest include the Wilmeta Park School, the higher risk of flooding in that eastern part of the city, airport noise, and the fact that there's a higher percentage of renters means they have in common issues specific to renters. My District 3, the Southern District, is Mills Estate, the upper Millbrae Villa, and the upper Millbrae Highlands south of Hillcrest. What they have in common is Spring Valley School, Mills High School, and again, the hillside issues of blocked views, slope stability, wildfire risk, and this is my majority Asian district. District 4 is the Northern District, includes the neighborhoods Cappuccino, Wilmeta Hills, Millwood, and Green Hills. The areas of interest are Green Hills School, Cappuccino High School, and the open space around the country club. And lastly, District 5 is the core of original Millbrae, the lower Millbrae Highlands, the lower Millbrae Villa, and the
Mayor.
lower Silver Ranch. The communities of interest are the downtown shopping district, the civic center, Taylor Middle School,
Mayor.
and parking issues and tree maintenance.
Excuse me, so
So,
sorry to interrupt. Mayor, I think 3 minutes are up.
yeah, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Councilmember Fung.
Are we done with public comment, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Jean took her hand down, so go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Thank you. I want to thank all the community members here tonight, members of the public, all my fellow council members and the staff and our consultants. I think we've done over 3 months worth of outreach here. I understand this is the process that nobody wants to be, nobody wants to see us doing this, myself included. Dividing up Millbrae is not something that any one of us wants to do, but we're here. CVRA has limited our ability and we must do this. And, you know, I think all the comments, all the maps that were submitted were excellent comments. They were excellent maps for the reason that was stated. And it's what shaped us to where we are today. You know, narrowing it down to the 5 maps, you know, from 30, 40, 50 maps down to 10, then to 5 finally. And we're here tonight with the actions that are in front of us, and we must make this tough decision. Because one way or another, this is going to be a tough decision, my fellow council member and the members of the public. So, you know, and personally, I have done quite a bit of work in terms of looking at every single viable map that was submitted. And I understand how all these communities of interest need to try to maintain as much as we can. And when I look at all of this, I look at one map, map G, that practically checked vast majority of the boxes. It maintains all the historical and well-established communities of interest. And I think it will serve our city well moving forward here. And so at this point, Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to adopt map G.
Thank you.
As our 5 district moving forward here. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. Can we call for a vote, please, Edward?
Councilmember Schneider,
No.
Councilmember Oliver,
This is a difficult decision and one that we'll have to live with for better or worse for 10 years. That being said, I can support this map. Although I guess.
Councilmember Fung,
You're muted, Anders.
Nobody wants to divide up Millbrae, but this is a tough decision, but for the sake of our city moving forward, aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Again, this is tough. I think I've expressed my preference for this in such a way that I hope it really allows the council members who represent these districts to represent different areas and brings actually more unity. So I'll vote yes.
Mayor Oliva,
Yes, I am very confident in my vote because of the process that the city council went through and our community and our staff. And I'm very proud to say that I did my homework. I did my due diligence. And with my vote of yes, I'm very confident that this would be the best decision for the city of Millbrae going forward.
Question, Mayor?
Can we hear the vote count, please, first?
Oh, yes. It's
the
4-1.
city council adopts draft map Plan G as presented. by a vote of 4-1 with Councilmember Schneider voting against.
Thank you. Councilmember Schneider, you had a comment?
With this vote, given the software that sort of assigns numbers, and given that we have an election cycle where there are two positions and then 3 positions, is it possible to renumber these so that 2 and 4 are going to be the 2 districts that do not have an incumbent in them and would be open in 2022? Which would mean the current District 5 and the current District 3, renumbering them to 2 and 4.
That'll be our next discussion. I'm not so sure we're going to take that up tonight, but you're absolutely on the right path to where we need to go.
Mayor, if I may, the order of election is on the agenda this evening, and I believe unless the attorney states otherwise, is an action required of the city council this evening.
Madam,
I stand corrected. So we are going to do that tonight.
yes, in order to meet our deadline of March 1st, we do have before you an ordinance which would reflect and incorporate the map that the council has just determined to be the map. And then there are a couple other decisions that need to be made.
So do we have somebody to walk us through this process?
Yes, Kim, would you like to walk through the process here? Maybe can we take the map down and see people? There we go.
Yeah, I would defer first, Joan, to Paul if Paul wants to say anything, but then I'm happy to.
Paul?
So,
Madam Mayor, if I may,
first
if
off,
I may just say, first suggest we can decide which 2 districts will go up for election first, and then we can go one after another.
So-
I think we need to hear from Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the process of numbering is one and the same with the process of selecting what election dates you would have each of these districts come up in. Now, traditionally in a 5-district system, you would have the odds in one election cycle and the evens in another. So as was discussed earlier, you could, to be more consistent with other cities in the region, have 2 and 4 coming up in 22 and 1, 3, and 5 coming up in 24. But that is something that you can decide. If you did do that, you can associate districts 2 and 4 with whichever geographic areas you want to have come up in 2022, and then the other 3 would come up in 2024. The California Voting Rights Act has been traditionally fairly silent on the sequencing of these districts. However, the more recent safe harbor provisions did insert a little section that said that when coming up with a numbering sequence, you should take into consideration the desires of residents, and particularly those that are more a function of the intents around the Voting Rights Act, around the California Voting Rights Act. And so what that's been taken to mean is that sometimes there are communities, say a Latino community or a renter community or a low-income community, that is generally very low turnout in gubernatorial elections and very high turnout in presidential elections. So in that sense, if you did have input from the community that says our community will be disenfranchised if we're put in a gubernatorial election because we're lower turnout, then you could make a decision to consider that and place that community in an election that would be concurrent with the presidential. This is more for background because I have not heard yet any community input around this issue, and I'm not aware of a district here in any of these configurations where, as an example, you would have that Latino community that's lower turnout in a gubernatorial election cycle that should be sequenced to a presidential, and the API community can sometimes be higher turnout in a gubernatorial election cycle. So it's not clear that you would even be compelled to make sure that the majority minority Asian district is in a presidential versus gubernatorial election cycle. So in other agencies, this becomes a very different conversation in your situation, I think. And I'll defer to your legal counsel, but in your situation, I feel like you have free reign over selecting which 2 districts will come up in 22 and which 2 districts will come up in 24.
And to follow up with Paul, I think I concur. You have pretty much absolute discretion, because sometimes, again, you'll want to target for the presidential for certain districts, and sometimes you want to target for the gubernatorial. Again, we have not heard anything about that yet. So, and if we don't, then the council has discretion to do what makes sense. And, and you're trying to comply with the spirit of the California Voting Rights Act. And again, as Paul said, it's a rather undefined standard. Usually it's meant to encourage public participation, especially among underserved communities. But again, without further data, you're pretty much free to do what you want.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd just like to acknowledge here that we have a very diverse city here. And as far as I know, the only information we had as to the Hispanic population was not voting in a block within a city council race, but during one statewide race, they voted as a block. So we want to encourage that population here, but there's been no disenfranchising at this point in time within the city of Millbrae. I mean, that the only evidence we ever had was at a state race. So as far as I know, we have an election for 2 representatives coming up. So I think it's consistent for us to pick 2 districts here that would be open for seats to run. And the Hispanic population, or the premise is that District 5 on this map is one of those districts, or has one of the highest populations there. Now, I guess we could, in order to be consistent here, renumber some of these if it's helpful to the public, that if it's going to be a 2-person race instead of the 3-person race, we probably have to renumber them all so that the odd numbers would be, since we have more odd numbers in the districts where you'd have the 3-person race. So it seems we're getting very confusing, but in order to simplify for the public, we can do that.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So it doesn't sound that complicated. Councilmember Holliver?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree with those comments. I was actually just looking up the 2018 election results and turnout numbers from Millbrae, and the lowest turnout precinct was roughly 62.5%, which is pretty high. The highest being 78.4. So it's fairly small difference in turnout from one part of Millbrae to the other. So at this point in time, I would recommend having the 2022 districts be districts that are not currently represented. And just from looking at this map, I believe that would be districts 5, 3. And I think if we could also number them in a way that makes sense logically, like for example, the county board of supervisors, I never understood why north to south it goes district 5 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe district 5 in this map would be 2, and then 3 and 4 would switch, and then the one labeled as district 2 then be district 5 perhaps.
Makes a lot of sense. Councilmember Schneider?
I think I'm agreeing with Councilman Holliber. I think the county started with 1 because they start on coast side. or they start on Bayside and work their way around in a circle, sorry, not on camera, and came back to Coastside at the end, meaning Daly City. So you're saying that District 1 would be portion of Meadows, Lamita Hills, 2 would be Bayside, Marina Vista, 3 would be
3 would be sort of the central district. That's
yeah,
labeled
the
as 4.
central can't be historic anymore. 4 would be Mills Estates, and 5 would be Highlands Meadows.
I think 4 would be the upper Hillcrest, the one labeled as 3 right now, and then 5 would be the southernmost district.
Yeah, because I think then when in 2022, 2 seats, 2 districts, 2024, 3 seats, they're all odd numbers districts. So 3 seats, 3 odd numbers. There's at least some kind of sort of logic to the numbering system.
Thank you. I think we have agreement here. Do you guys want to see this? Is there a way that we could put a map up where we could see what we're talking about, or can we just?
I talked to Tom earlier today about trying to change the numbers. Apparently it's linked to the data and the process. So I think the map would have to come back, but.
I can show the numbers, and it's good maybe just to do this. I'm using the raw mapping software, so I apologize that these maps aren't as pretty as the maps you've been looking at. And are we saying that the district that is along El Camino is 1, and then it just goes 2, 3, 4, 5?
Paul, can you put it back up?
No, the district along El Camino has to be an even number.
Okay.
So the brown one has to be 2 and the red one has to be 4.
Okay, hold on a second.
If you want to maybe hover over each one.
If we hover over each one, I'll make sure I get it right here.
So 1.
That one's going to be 1. Okay. Hold
2.
on.
3. 4. 5.
Okay, so that one's going to be 5. I had that right. So this is going to be 1. And the brown one's going to be what?
2.
2. And then the red one is
4.
4. Okay.
3.
Okay, let me just do this again. I'm going to go into the mapping software and make sure I get this right.
And while he's fidgeting with that, we should probably, we talked about having a citizens academy at one point in time to really try to encourage more people to run for office. I know it's not on the agenda, but it'd be a good time to do something like that.
We could bring it to a future agenda, Gina.
We had 2 other things tonight in the Tom, what else are the other 2 items we had to do? The order of the election. So what's in 2022, 24, the renumbering to match it, but there was something else we had to do.
Residency requirements.
Yeah, a really tough one.
Were 3 and 4 switching on this, or were they staying the same? Were they swapping?
Switching.
They're switching.
Great. I'll be able to share my screen here in a second.
If the council agrees with that, it's just my suggestion.
It was a good suggestion.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm just doing these one at a time and I want to make sure I'm getting them right.
Mayor, while we're waiting, do you want to ask the city manager if there's a staff explanation about the residency thing? Because apparently there's a range of options we can look at.
They'll be, why don't we finish it? Yeah, I mean, they can be ready for us.
Just to get them ready, yeah.
All righty. I just went back in and did it from memory based on as we were going through that. Is this where we're thinking that 2 is going to be the district up here?
Right.
And then 1, 4, 3, and 5?
I'm seeing the
Sorry,
same thing. I'm
I see the
confused.
same map here.
There you go.
Ah,
Sorry. Now is it showing?
no, switching 3 and 4.
Switching 3 and 4 here?
No, that looks correct.
Correct.
This is
No.
right.
No, it's correct up here.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
right on
yeah,
my-
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. You're right.
It's right on my screen. That's perfect, Paul.
Okay. And then just to clarify again, districts 1 and 2 are going to be the ones that are, or 2 and 4 are going to be the ones that are up in 22, 1, 3, and 5 in 24. You're not based on that map,
Right.
based
5
on the
and
map that I
3.
was showing earlier.
5 and 3 on this map, as I understand, which
No,
2
not
and 4, 2 and 4 on the new
2 and
map.
4, 2 and 4 on the map I
Yeah,
created.
let's stick with one map and not go back and forth.
I think everybody's clear. But will we get this final map for review?
I'll have it to you in 10 minutes.
Okay, great. Then
And
let's
then-
talk about the other thing.
And
Okay.
then, Mayor, just if I may, so there's a second reading of the ordinance that was adopted by the city council.
Yes.
So you will see this final map.
I understand that Paul may have it for us very shortly. But there is a third issue that the council could discuss in the interim. And that is the issue of whether you would like to consider the imposition of a residency requirement. State law does not require it. Some cities have not required a minimum period of residency from a particular district before a person can run from that district. And some cities have imposed a residency requirement. So I offered this issue up to the council and may even want to solicit public comment on this particular issue.
Why don't we start with council comment first?
Sure, absolutely.
I have one question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
It's for legal. Do we have a timeline on adopting or on this residency requirement?
Good question.
That is a good question. Kim, I'm going to refer to either Kim or Paul.
In other words, if we don't decide tonight, when can we bring it back, Anders? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, yeah, I want to make sure that, this is also a very important topic. I want to make sure this is fully vetted out.
Uh-huh.
So you don't have to, I mean, I don't see Kim. Kim is there.
I'm here.
What would be required? I don't think you need to do it tonight. But if you want it to be part of your code, this ordinance you will pass will be codified in the Millbrae Municipal Code. We'll have to do another ordinance. And I also think that you would want to have this issue addressed soon because we do have an election coming up. Correct? We have our first 2 and 4 districts will be electing council members with papers due this summer.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
As far as this residency issue goes here, we don't, standard law is that you are a resident, you are a voter, you get to run. We've never had a residency requirement before. You know, it becomes an issue during campaigns, is somebody being a carpetbagger if they just move to an area to run. But I mean, that's kind of standard politics. That's how things happen. So, you know, I think it's not something we've done before. I think we just leave it as is and, you know, not have a specific residency requirement unless another council member has a specific reason to do so, which I would be interested in hearing.
Perfect. Councilmember Schneider.
Well, I'd rather, Tom and I kind of talked about this based on what has happened in other cities. And I'd love to hear a staff report. And I think maybe this should come back to us as a separate ordinance to talk about what can happen with or without residency ordinances. Yeah, it's true if somebody just moves into an area, they could be perceived as carpetbaggers, but if you happen to be a low information voter, you may not know that. I think the other question that I hadn't thought about when we were briefing this morning was if someone has reached term limits in their district and then they move to another district, are they still under term limits? Or is that thrown back? So I think it opens up a bunch of things, but I think not having or residency, which sometimes can be, you just have to have lived in the district a week before the end of the filing period, to 30 days to 6 months or things like that. It would be interesting to know what the other cities would do before we get close to even making a decision.
Well, it's also people from other cities moving to our city.
That could be that too, which is how people have gotten in trouble.
Councilmember Holliber.
Yeah, I mean, I would be supportive of some type of residency requirement, even if it's 30 days. I think that's what City of San Mateo approved, as was stated in the staff report. I think, you know, what we don't want is to have somebody, you know, move into a hotel room or something like the day before the filing deadline and move into, you know, their uncle's basement, just as because they're fishing around to find what district, you know, has the least competition. They might be able to run unopposed or have only one opponent or something. You know, I recall there was a candidate who ran for the Board of Supervisors, I think, in 3 different districts in 3 consecutive years. This was about 10 years ago. And I believe she at one point was living in a hotel. So I would be supportive of something. I think 30 days is reasonable. It's not too onerous. I think the other question is then how do we enforce that? How do we prove it? Which I don't know if that necessarily has to be part of the evidence, but part of the ordinance, but something to think about. Thank you. But I'd be happy with bringing that back at another time. It doesn't necessarily have to be decided today.
City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just going to, for the benefit of the public, I mean, defining residency requirements, meaning that you must live within the district that you're seeking office for. So I wanted to just clarify that for the members of the public. You must live, if you're running for District 2 on this map, you must live in District 2, District 4, you must live in District 4. The residency requirements, as Councilmember Holliber had just mentioned, and I think as being discussed, is the filing application for candidates opens in mid-July and closes mid-August. I think actually the deadline for 2022 is August 12th. And so I think what Councilmember Holliber mentioned has merit. That's what staff would, you know, discuss with the council to avoid those issues. And I do believe Burlingame, City of San Mateo, other cities, that is the reason why they have that 30-day minimum residency requirement. Other than that, it's, you know, as legal counsel said, it's at the discretion of the city council in terms of policy.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'd just like to resolve this tonight. If you want 30 days, fine with me, but you know, let's do this all at once. I don't think it's going to take, you know, a whole nother meeting, a whole nother discussion here. If other cities have done it for a specific reason, I'm fine with that too. So
I would agree. I would agree, Vice Mayor. So Ruben
So
would.
I'll move for her 30-day residency element to this. So deserves.
Sorry, just to clarify, 30 days before the close of filing or 30 days before the opening of filing? Because that's a question. I don't really have a preference either way.
Councilmember,
Mr. Williams,
Mayor,
clarify.
yeah, I mean, from what I've researched, it's at the closing date. So 30 days prior to August 12th.
Okay, so it's 30 days prior to the closing.
Correct.
That's the motion I will make tonight. Thank you.
I can second that.
Perfect. Can we call for the vote, please?
May I make just one clarification? We looked at what some of the other cities have done, and what we had drafted in the ordinance that's before you tonight was, if you have to consider a residency requirement, it would be marked by 30 days before the time the candidate files nominating papers.
Yeah, so I would request to modify that motion. I do agree that it is important to live in the district if you seek office in that district, right? So 30 days before you officially file for the candidacy, I think that makes sense to me.
So that could from
Will you accept the amendment if the second will also accept the amendment?
Sorry,
Ruben would accept the friendly amendment.
Yeah, Joan, can you repeat that?
So here's how it reads. If any candidate for city council must have been a resident and elector of the district in which they seek election for at least, and I will say 30 days, before the time they file nominating papers or an equivalent declaration of candidacy for the city council or such person's appointment to fill a vacancy therein.
Okay, well, that doesn't change the original motion as she just stated it, because you would need to, you file your papers before the deadline. So it would be 30 days before the deadline. So it doesn't change the motion that I made.
Well, not really. Some people might file the papers before the last day.
Right, that's.
So the difference, this rule says 30 days before they file. They may not.
Yeah, and you also mentioned you have to be an elector, which means you have to be registered to vote at that address. You can't have lived there and been registered somewhere else previously.
Right.
So as I see it, someone can move here 30 days before the filing deadline. So it wouldn't be, 30 days before the opening of the filing period. So I made the motion, and the motion sounds like what was just read there. You would have to be here, a resident of Millbrae within the district that is open 30 days before the cutoff.
Well, that's not exactly what I read, but we certainly could write that into the ordinance.
Joan, you can read it again, but it says, it
30
doesn't say
days.
about at the opening of the filing period.
No, it doesn't. It says.
Doesn't. So therefore.
Candidate files.
Dina, let her read it again, please.
I'm okay with the way it's written.
30 days before the time the candidate files the nominating papers. Someone could file.
So yeah, so if you want to file on the deadline, you have to have registered and been living there at least 30 days. Yeah.
So is the motion going to be?
If you try to file early, then you have to wait another week or whatever.
I'm fine with the way she read it.
Okay, perfect. So Joan, could you read it again for the motion, please?
That a candidate for city council must have been a resident and elector of the district in which they seek election for at least 30 days before the time they file nominating papers or some equivalent declaration of candidacy for city council or such person's appointment to fill a vacancy therein. So also, if a vacancy were to come up and the city council were to appoint someone from that district, the residency requirement would apply there too.
So moved.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Well, we had Ruben already second this. We had a friendly amendment. So we have the motion is made by Vice Mayor. Second is by Councilmember Holliber. And we have a comment from Councilmember Schneider.
all of this to me feels like we're making sausage. I get the intent. I hear how lovely it will be to get all of this behind us tonight, and then the second reading, and we can go on with things that are really more important in terms of serving the public. But it feels like we're making sausage. It feels to me like the public didn't even know that this is something that we would be considering. I know it's in the staff report. So I'll be voting no, and I would have preferred actually 6 months. There is a lot of carpetbagging that happens in the greater Bay Area. There's a lot of carpetbagging that happened between Sacramentans who then run for a district where they lived in Sacramento, and they didn't know their neighborhoods at all. And if they're the only one that files, then sadly they get elected or get appointed, however, and they know nothing about the community they're representing. And it, I again, don't like the districts, don't like this, but I'm just going to be another no vote.
Okay. I think that we have a motion and a second, and I
Call
think
for the question.
thanks staff for the homework on it. And Eduardo, could you please take the vote?
Councilmember Schneider,
No.
Councilmember Holliber,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council adopts a requirement requiring 30 days of residency for any candidate before the candidate files nomination papers in the upcoming election. With that, Joe, did I catch all that?
Yeah, the motion to reflect the exact language that's already in the ordinance that will now be presented to the council. You caught it. 30 days before the time the candidates file nominating papers, or 30 days before a person is appointed to fill a vacancy.
Thank you. So that would be a part of the related actions in this action of number 8, but I see that we have the map up. Is this the new map?
Nope.
Nope.
Oh.
Yes.
This is the adopted map, but the numbers
Yes.
are, so we can take this down now that the council's.
Okay.
We've
So
sent the map has been sent to staff.
can we see the map?
That up in a second.
I can actually share mine if you want.
That'd probably be faster.
Now,
So
this is mentioned as the selected map. At the next hearing, it will become the adopted map. But this is the numbering system that we discussed. And all the other data and everything else to go with it is all the same as in the other maps that you've already had, but we'll make sure those are available on the website.
this looks perfect to me. Does anybody have any changes or concerns? This is what we voted upon, and those numbers look correct to me.
So all we have to do now is pick an election. Is that right? Or did we do that?
So what you need to do now is formally introduce the ordinance. The ordinance before you had blank lines, and now we can fill in those blank lines, given that the council has just taken 3 motions that determines the 3 issues that were up for discussion. 1 was selecting the map. 2 was the order of election as we facilitate district elections over the next 2 election cycles. And 3 is the 30-day
Can you
residency.
keep that map up so the council can see the, sorry.
So the introduction and first reading of an ordinance, it's the city of Millbrae to amend the Millbrae Municipal Code by repealing and reinstating its entirety, chapter 2.35, entitled City Council by District Elections, providing for the elections of members of the city council by 5 districts, establishing the boundaries and the identification numbers of each district, establishing the election order of each district, and related actions which we have just discussed. So for that, we need a motion?
Yes, you do, Madam Mayor.
So moved.
No.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we please call?
You might just make sure you don't have any public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Let me look. I don't see any hands raised.
Great. Just wanted to check the box.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Schneider's hand raised. Nope. Can we, do you want to put it?
Hand's still up, Councilmember Schneider.
Would you like to call for the vote, please?
Councilmember Schneider,
Oh, God, I'm sorry. What am I voting on?
This is the ordinance and that puts in place the 3 motions that the council just took.
Item number 8. On the
Okay, so I twice voted no, and it makes me look ridiculous to vote yes, but it's a done deal. I'm going to abstain.
Councilmember Holliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council introduces and holds a first reading of an ordinance of the city of Millbrae to amend the Millbrae Municipal Code by repealing and restating in its entirety chapter 2.35 titled City Council by District Elections, providing for the election of members of the city council by 5 districts, establishing the boundaries by adopting draft map G and identification numbers of each district shown in the selected, revised, amended draft map G, and establishing the order of each district with District 2 and 4 on the amended selected draft map G up for election in 2022, and Districts 1, 3, and 5 on the amended draft map G up for election in 2024, as well as including a requirement for 30 days of residency as noted in the staff report.
Thank you, Eduardo. Hard work, good work. Thank you, council, for coming together to put this together. All right, let's move on to our next item on our agenda, please. And it's existing business, and it's the approval of the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory Analysis and Recommendations Report. Do we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Mackenzie Brady, our Recreation Director, for a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Mackenzie Brady, Recreation Director, and I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo. All right, as mentioned, this is the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory Analysis and Recommendations Report, and I will move through this quickly. We'll review the purpose, inventory, park analysis, definitions, recommendations from the consultant, the conceptual improvements, park maintenance analysis, prescriptive measures, methodology, and the next steps, which will be the council action. The purpose of this report is to provide an inventory analysis and set of recommendations for our current parkland, including size, condition, repairs or upgrades, and associated costs. And so this just looks at city-owned parks and does not actually review school facilities, which are under separate agreements. And this report can also help to assist staff in departmental and citywide planning regarding our capital improvement plans and also help us to apply for grants. And this also may be used to support analyses for individual development projects and their impact on our facilities. You can see here, this is our existing park inventory. This is an aerial image of where our park space lays within the city limits. So the yellow locations here are our developed parks, and I'll go through these definitions on a future slide. These are our developed parks within the city. Green is our developed open space. So this would be our spur trail, developed spur trail location. And that's between Magnolia Avenue, and Richmond Avenue. Our undeveloped parks would be Schultz Undeveloped Park as well as Mills Estate Undeveloped Park. And then the blue is our undeveloped open space. And so this is our undeveloped spur trail location. This extends from along Richmond Avenue to Lameda Avenue. And you can also see over here in the table, we have our parkland that is broken out into acreage, as well as the who owns these locations. Most of them are owned by the city of Millbrae, except for Bayside Manor and Marina Vista are owned by San Francisco International. And Monterey Park is a JPB, Joint Powers ownership. You can see that our total developed parkland, the yellow park spaces on the aerial map, is 47.1 acres. In our undeveloped parkland, totals 7.3 acres. Our undeveloped open space, which is our spur trail undeveloped, is 26.4 acres. Overall, our total developed parkland, as mentioned before, is 47.1 acres. The level of service that we should be reaching is 3 acres per 1,000 individuals. We have 22,500 individuals within the city of Millbrae. And with that divided with our 47.1 acres, we are at 2.1 acres per 1,000 individuals. So that shows that we are deficient by 0.9 acres per 1,000 individuals. As I said, level of service based on the Quimby Act is 3 acres per 1,000, and we are at 2.1 acres per 1,000 individuals. The report also has a park analysis for each park. And so these sites were looked at 2 different levels. So looking at use patterns and the facilities currently on site, as well as the desires from residents for additional or improved amenities. The individual elements were evaluated by a set of criteria that are listed here. Needs were noted and weighed along with items of longer term wear and tear. So if something was in dire need of repair, they noted that within the report. And they also looked at size, location, user group, as well as a number of other qualities to determine the recommendations for the parks within Millbrae. In some cases, site elements aren't being used. They're unsafe or unsightly and are suggested for replacement or removal. And then based on this inventory and analysis, they recommended different things that we could do to enhance our parks. As I noted before, there are some park and space definitions that I wanted to go through. So developed park are park spaces that are improved and unobstructed for the most part with landscaping and recreational equipment, such as playgrounds or sports courts. And these parks are for outdoor recreation and physical exercise. Our developed open spaces are any area that are vacant of structures and are primarily maintained in its natural condition. So that would be our developed spur trail location. Our undeveloped parks are city-owned parcels, but have no recreational equipment or amenities, and that would be Schultz Undeveloped Park and Mills Estate Undeveloped Park. We also have undeveloped open space, so that's city-owned parcels which are not developed and have no recreational equipment or amenities, just like undeveloped park, but the difference is that an undeveloped park may be later developed into a park space with playground and or sports courts. The consultant recommended a number of different things, and I will go through those recommendations on future slides. They also noted that with new residential dwelling units, there are 2 primary impacts with our recreational facilities. So there is one, accelerated deterioration on current facilities due to new population. So that would be increased wear and tear from facilities being used more often, more frequently. And then there's also the need for new parkland and facilities to accommodate future population. So that's wear and tear on current facilities and then need for additional facilities to accommodate additional population. Consultant also noted that there are citywide chronic deficiencies. There are 5 specific park facilities that need significant improvements first, and that would be Central Park, Bayside Manor, Marina Vista Park, Mills Estate Undeveloped Park, and Rotary Park. They also noted that trail networks are deficient. They need thorough access for bicyclists and pedestrians. We also know that there's a lack of visual and physical connections between Central Park, Civic Center, and the downtown improvement area, and that our public lands are undeveloped as well as staffing deficiencies. So we'll go through the top 5 park spaces that the consultant, who is Carducci, recommended for improvements first. We have Bayside Manor, which is owned by SFO. They noted, and you can see an aerial image of Bayside Manor in the location here within the bounds of Millbrae city limits. And Bayside Manor is at the end of Loretta Avenue on the east side of the city. For a high priority within this park, they noted that or they recommended that we install a central paved hub with picnic furnishings and hydration stations. So that'd be a water fountain. Renovate the athletic turf area with new gopher deterrent and adjust irrigation. Install new sport court and basketball furnishings, and provide a dedicated bicycle parking area. Secondary considerations, and this is for most of the spaces, so I won't read through all of them for each space, but they noted that artwork can transform a cultural space. Also, acrylic surfacing would enhance and protect the new basketball surface. So acrylic surfacing would be like VersaCourt, that would be sport court tiling. They also noted that peripheral large accent specimen shrubs would enhance the space. With improved irrigation and additional play components would also be beneficial, as well as the benches, helping to enhance spectator areas to the active sport or playground areas. For Central Park, they noted a number of the same recommendations: a central shade range structure, central paved hub with picnic furnishings and hydration station, watering fountain for the playground area, which is currently being renovated, as well as improved drainage, new turf, gopher deterrent, and irrigation within the turf area. Also recommended several bicycle parking areas. As well as with Bayside Manor, they recommended public art and denser low maintenance shrub plantings. With Marina Vista, also owned by SFO, and we lease that space, very similar recommendations under the high priority and secondary as well. Something that is new for Marina Vista that they recommended is a ladder style crosswalk to enhance safety. With Mills Estate, undeveloped park, they noted a number of the same recommendations, as well as adding playground components, as this is a park that does not have a playground. They also detailed that a restroom would be convenient in this space. And the last park that is that the consultant noted is in need of a major improvement is Rotary Park. They added in that installing clusters of new benches for small gathering opportunities would be a high priority, adding play components for all age groups, as the playground in Rotary Park is mostly for 2 to 5-year-olds, and also eradicating the ivy on the fence, and that would be the fence on the north side of the park here along Millbrae Creek. With this report, they also created a park maintenance analysis and noted that most Millbrae parks are in good condition due to the diligence of the limited maintenance staff and its management, but there are certain challenging areas to all of the sites. Some are suffering in appearance, and there's also some that have been chronically misused that could use some improvements. And they noted that the prescriptive measures would ensure relief to a struggling maintenance crew, which would help to strengthen city team morale, increase public pride and care by helping to give residents a sense of ownership with the parks. And throughout all of the parks, our consultant noted prescriptive measures, and through all of them, this is a list of all of the different measures throughout all of the parks. So reducing, repairing, and replacing park elements would help to minimize the time and effort required to maintain. Also, replacing plant materials that would require routine pruning would help to save time and effort and eliminate debris that would help to, or that would compound maintenance efforts. For parks with active recreational turf areas, they they suggested to add gopher deterrent to help to decrease maintenance. And then those with passive turf areas, they recommended to add in alternate plantings that would reduce overall efforts and increase safety. Installation of new and well-placed trash and recycling units would help to reduce frequency and intensity of maintenance calls. So that would be adding in potentially trash cans like our big bellies that would help to compact that trash and reduce the amount of time that our maintenance staff would be going out there to empty the trash. Also, replacing naturally littering plant material with tidier specimens would help to reduce the efforts for cleaning. Also, conspicuous surveillance systems, so cameras being added into our park spaces would help to deter vandalism. And then increasing furnishings would help to foster public pride and expand social opportunities within our park spaces. And then you can see here, this is a table that is located within the report, and this is methodology for maintenance funding needs. So how they allocated funding needs for each park. And so all of the parks are listed here. This is in alphabetical order, no specific order. And you can see acreage here in square feet. And then they detailed out different columns here for different levels of improvement. So for open space improvements, they recommended $8 per square foot amount for the total for each of these parks. And then medium improvements, $16 a square foot. And then major improvements, $20 a square foot. And then those parks that are slated under the open space improvements are the parks that are considered our open spaces. So the spur trail developed open space, spur trail undeveloped open space, as well as Josephine Waugh Sir Optimus Park. And Josephine Waugh is in this column, in this category, because it is an open space, but it was also recently improved. So that is why it is in the lower $8 per square foot category. For medium improvements, those are parks that are not in as dire need of improvements or repairs. And then we have our 5 parks that I already noted that are in the category for major improvements. That's a $20 a square foot. And those are ones that might be smaller parks, so Bayside Manor and Marina Vista, that would bring forth a higher square foot higher dollar per square foot amount since they are smaller. So more expensive to mobilize in these parks. And then, as you can see over here, approximate improvement costs for all of these park spaces is right at the $60.5 million range. And something to note is that these are current improvements needed. This is not to take into account future capital needs. This is just current improvements. And overall, our next steps that we are requesting is that City Council approve by motion the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory Analysis and Recommendations Report. Now go ahead and take questions.
Wow, what a report. Thank you, Mackenzie. That was very detailed. It looks like Vice Mayor Gina Pappen has something first.
Thank you, Mackenzie. That was a very detailed report. Greatly appreciate it. Parks are expensive here. I am curious about the gopher deterrent. I was hoping to register those gophers for voting because there are so many of them throughout our city. What does that entail?
That I believe would be a wire mesh barrier below the turf.
That's it. So then they're just going to move over to somebody else's yard, because let me tell you, they're out of control in our city. I don't know if there's I really don't know. Maybe we borrow the mountain lions from Woodside, but these gophers are really out of control. So
if I may, Councilwoman Pappen, I did notice that Bill Fee with Carducci is on the call. Bill, I don't know if you had anything to add to what gopher deterrent might be.
Bill.
Sure, Mackenzie. And when we renovated the 4 elementary schools and the middle school, the city of Millbrae contracted with an organization, a private company, that was sort of like a rodent killer, and they work on the golf courses on the peninsula. And they, for about, I think they did a very effective plan. The construction itself ran the rodents off the sites, and then once the sites were sodded and irrigated again and put under maintenance, this company was under an annual maintenance contract, and they essentially got paid to keep the rodents away. So it was kind of like and I think that's the most effective program. It is a little tricky on the school sites, because actually what they would do is set traps in holes, which are, sound pretty dangerous in public parks and schools. But it's a very effective program, and nobody got hurt with it. So that's really the best thing to do.
Okay, well, I
Thank you,
suggest
Bill.
whatever we do, that we post something on the website to help our residents as well with the gopher issue, because I mean, it does become very dangerous, people tripping and hurting themselves. So whatever we do and however we're able to address this, please share it with the residents. Thank you.
Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you. Question, Ms. Brady. We're only looking at existing parks. This isn't the parks master plan. This isn't trying to identify small neighborhoods that have no park resources. Is that correct?
Correct.
Will we be getting a parks master plan that might start looking at regional versus neighborhood versus, Tom, correct me, they're not pocket parks or parklets, but many cities that have neighborhoods that have no parks at all. Let me use Millbrae Manor as an example. Hemlock, between El Camino and Hemlock and the railroad tracks, and the Osh parking lot, the back fence, and Hillcrest. There's nothing there for anybody. So they try to identify really, truly tiny parks. In Mountain View, they would, if a house had burned down, or a lot that had never been developed, and quite often in an Eichler neighborhood, they were small lots, that could become a park that's just perfect enough for a tot lot and some seating and some trees. And we have, if you brought your map back, you can see how far some people have to go to get to even the smallest area of green space. But if that's going to come back to us, I think the report said we didn't have enough money to do a real park master plan. When is that going to come back?
We are not certain of when that would come back. We need to definitely consider that and bring that back to make sure that we have that in the budget for.
Okay. As the city's SFO noise roundtable representative, I have read every EIR for the expansion of SFO from Millsfield on, and the two parks, Marina Vista and Bayside Manor, and Bayfront Park, which is gone from this list, are there because it was mitigation as San Francisco had to provide to the community for the original and then every additional expansion, and the moving of Bayshore Freeway right next to the Marina Vista neighborhood. So why I'm bringing that up is that these should be, in my world, in my point of perspective, SFO should be paying for park maintenance and park improvements, because they are blasting us with air pollution and noise. And I don't know if it's going to fit in this, but I think we should keep it there. And if we don't get Bayfront Park back, which was a mistake under Marsha Rain's time, it takes away our ability to predict or to get some control over sea level rise actions. And we'll get stuck with what SFO wants, which is riprap, not anything biological in nature. So I'd love to see Bayfront Park get back here and get back on the list, and for us to look at some funding sources from SFO, especially as they go forward with their more recent EIR, which the city manager keeps telling me that's our time to try to get mitigation when they do basically zero mitigation in Millbrae.
Member Schneider, do you have any comments on
I'm commenting on the park inventory and how to pay for it, Mayor. And I'm getting these things on record. In terms of trash, the terminology is landfill. I understand the big berth or the compactors. It does make it harder to pull recyclables out. I hope when we look at recycling containers, they're heavily vandalized, that we come up with a happy medium on that. The term I think you were looking for was right sizing plants so that they don't have to be pruned as often. They tend to grow smaller, but really and truly in terms of noise mitigation, those two parks that you talked about, and for climate change and climate resiliency, should be considering a lot of tree coverage, because trees are one of the few things that can absorb that low frequency noise. And for, I'm sure Mills Estates will just love me, that used to be an actual natural lake. If and when we do some work, will the planning include stormwater resiliency? If it had a short-term retention pond up there, that would prevent the water from coming down and flooding through Cohen Canal and other places. So I just hope that as we go through these plan adjustments, we're also looking, it's not quite climate change, although trees absorb carbon, it's resiliency. It's getting us into that resiliency section, and we shouldn't be doing a park without doing resiliency work at the same time.
Councilmember Holliver.
I think there was a response to that.
Did I interrupt you? Sorry, Mackenzie.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to let you know, Councilwoman Schneider, that the conceptual design for Mills Estate that we did submit for the grant application did include a bioretention basin along the street there.
Perfect.
Near the parking lot.
Thank you.
Councilmember Holliver.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there a lot of work that went into this, and thanks to everyone who worked on it. Obviously, we have a lot of needs here. Probably a lot more than we had thought of that were identified in this plan. What do we have right now in the CIP, and what is the time frame for? Obviously, we're not going to do everything that was recommended here, but what can we expect in the next year or two? And I'm thinking specifically about probably the three parts of it I think have been the most neglected, which are Bayside Manor, Marina Vista, and Mills Estate Park.
We do have in the CIP, we do not have funds allocated, but there is a plan to move forward on renovating Marina Vista, Bayside Manor, and Mills Estate. Those are in there along with Central Park, which we did fund to renovate the playground.
Okay, but when do you think those can be addressed based on Manor and Marina Vista?
I would have to defer that to City Manager Williams.
Yeah, maybe I can just, so there's two different things. One, we're talking about the existing conditions of parks and how we can use this inventory for CEQA compliance. So as Mackenzie said, wear and tear of existing development on our current conditions as it relates to CEQA. The other question then, as we grow our population, the level of service is 3 acres per 1,000 new population. And based on that new population, what type of capital improvements are necessary? Even though we're calling Mills Estates a park, it isn't a park. It's just land that the city owns. Just like Schultz Park. Schultz Park is just land, right? And so those provide us with opportunities then to invest capital dollars, development impact fees on improving those parks to then satisfy, the future population. So that will be coming. We're working on the capital improvement program and plan now for this next budget cycle. So we plan on presenting that to the city council. But council member, in terms of the priorities, most definitely we've identified Bayside Manor, as in great need of not only repair but upgrades. So kind of a combination there. What do we need to repair, but what can we also use to perhaps expand and upgrade? Same with Marina Vista Park. And then of course, Mills Estates Park, which is, planning and complete new development of that park.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, I'm looking, for example, at some of these images of Marina Vista, Bayside Manor. These basketball courts look like they're in pretty bad shape. Probably have to be resurfaced. I know the playgrounds there are pretty old as well. So if hopefully in the next, as the budget is being approved for fiscal year 22-23. Hope to see some budgeted item for those two. And since they're fairly small parks, I think even a fairly small investment will go a long way. Mills Estates is kind of a whole nother animal. It's pretty large, and it's basically just a brownfield at this point. I know there was a pretty elaborate conceptual plan that was used as part of the grant application. I believe we did not receive the grant, or the indication was that it was unlikely that we would receive it. So perhaps we could also work on kind of a plan B for that park, as if we don't get the grant, what would be kind of a scaled down version that would still make it more user friendly, maybe a walking path and a few benches, something fairly simple to make it more attractive and user friendly than it is now. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, no, good point. Phased improvements, based on the master plan implementation. You are correct. We did not receive the grant. It was very competitive. But yes, also we have identified the need for the resurfacing, especially the basketball courts at Bayside Manor. So that will be forthcoming in this budget cycle.
Hope to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to concur that this report is amazing. The details are fantastic, and it's a great working document. We just have to find the money now. So I think that we should keep this at hand so that we can prioritize. And Councilmember Holliver, those are good priorities that you just brought up. I was thinking on the same terms. Sorry, Councilmember Fung, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just, most of the comments already been made, but I just want to thank the staff for putting this together. It takes quite a bit of work to put all of this data together. Well done there. Also, I think the Mills Estate undeveloped area, I'm going to call it, the park to be. I think we've already had some conceptual plan, although we didn't get the grant last time. I think based on the fact that, as we discussed last time as well, Ms. Kinsey, based on the acres per 1,000 residents, where we should be at 3.0 or just barely a little more than 2.0 right now. So I think there are some opportunities, simply because of the, the acres per 1,000 currently is below that 3.0 threshold. So I think hopefully we will continue to be aggressive in, taking advantage on every opportunity on these grant applications. And same thing for the Schultz undeveloped park area as well. So I think continue pursuing those grant opportunities so that we can use our impact fee as matching dollar. Hopefully we can move this as quickly as we can. Thank you, staff.
Was that a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? I'll second.
Pappen, second.
Okay, Pappen second it. Can we call for the vote, please?
Comment.
Okay.
Question, Mackenzie. We count city facilities as 5.1 acres. And I can see the little park with the gazebo. I can see the cement in front of the library. But how do we count all that 5.1 acres as park?
It's considered park and recreation facilities, so not just parks.
Okay, so the parking lot right now, given the temp rec center, I just wonder if our numbers are actually lower than they are. But maybe we need to recognize the cute little parklet that's right there. Because I do see people enjoying that all the time, and it's really a lovely asset.
Call for the question.
Yes, we have a motion and we have a second. Eduardo?
That's for public comment.
Oh, thank you, Ruben. I'm so sorry, public comment. I don't see any hands raised. Am I missing anybody?
I do not see anyone with their hands raised. Here.
Councilmember Schneider, your hand, I don't know if it goes up or down. I don't know if it's up for a reason. Is it up because you would like to speak? Okay, thank you. It's down. Can we please call for the vote?
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes, another vote passed quickly.
Councilmember Oliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Yes.
The City Council approves the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory Analysis and Recommendations Report by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 on our agenda, the Recreation Center Design and Construction Update and Resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to execute a budget amendment for a large specimen trees, either a contract change order for the design build contract with Bach Construction or award a contract to furnish and install large specimen tree, a contract change order for the design building contract with Bach Construction, increasing the project contingency by not to exceed the amount of $146,000 for engineered hardware installation, and increased project contingency amount $150,000. And we have staff report, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce our project manager, Jane Cow.
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Member, City Council. Let me pull up the presentation for tonight. Perfect. Are you guys seeing the right screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So tonight's agenda, and I'll be as brief as quick as possible. I know it's getting late. So I'll go through the council action and then a quick update on construction design, schedule, and budget. So tonight's council action includes receiving an update as well as authorizing what Mayor just had read from the staff report. It's a budget amendment to increase the project by $80,000 to purchase and install more suitable sized trees at the 3 specimen tree locations. And then authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a contract change order to the design build contract with Block, or award a contract with the responsive and responsible low bidder to furnish and install 3 specimen trees up to $80,000. This is just to provide a little bit more flexibility as we try to procure these trees, and then as well as authorizing city managers destiny to execute a change order, as well as increasing the contingency amount by not to exceed $146,000 for engineered hardwood floor installation in the Great Hall, and finally increase the project contingency by the amount of $150,000. And this is extra budget that we have outside of the Blocks contract that it's no longer needed. And as usual, I'd like to start with the construction time-lapse video that's provided by Block to show progress and where we are today. Okay, as you can see here, they started forming the curbs for the pathways out in front in the arrival court. So construction is moving really quickly and efficiently on site. On the exterior, final grading and concrete pavement are currently in progress. You can see here that the patio, the color concrete patio has been poured for the Great Hall. This is also true for the preschool play yard. And then in the parking lot, you see that new curbs went in. There's a new retaining wall on the side, new pathway, stairs, new ramp. And what they're getting ready for is our big paving day on Friday. And then in the interior, you will see that light fixtures are being installed, and then casework as well is being installed. For design update, there's 3 items that we want to present today for discussion and approval. First one's audio visuals, which we'll discuss monitors versus projectors. Number 2 is the specimen trees, and number 3 are the hardwood floors. So these are the 3 actions. So for audiovisual monitor versus projector, so the architect and the contractor highly recommended that the city would consider using monitors instead of projectors in the classroom, art classroom, and the Great Hall. As you can see here, this image on the top, right? The projector that's going to be hung from the ceiling will actually require these seismic bracing, and these are intrusive, and it doesn't quite meet the architect's vision for the spaces. So there are 3 monitors. There's total of 5 projectors that's being originally proposed, and we want to switch those out to 10 monitors. Monitors are actually already being used in other locations within the buildings, and those are conference room, the lobby, the fitness area, as well as staff areas. Projectors were originally chosen for the classroom and the Great Hall as they can provide larger viewing areas without the need for multiple units around the room. Monitors can be used to display schedules and events. It requires less setup time than using a projector, and we no longer need blackout shades or long-term maintenance. I can dive in a little more into the blackout shades later. The total net cost would be a cost of $37,000, and this is rough order of magnitude. And this estimated costs include credits for deletion of window shades at the Great Hall transom windows, so the top windows on top, which are no longer needed, switching out the projectors to monitors, new electrical and low voltage wiring, as well as any wall patching. As you can see in the earlier photos, the interior, all the walls have been closed up, and most of the walls have been closed up. So in order to switch over to monitors, we now have to unfortunately open up some of the walls to include, to install new electrical and wirings. So we discussed this with the subcommittee, and they agreed that the monitors is the way to go. But however, they did direct staff to revisit placement as well as equipment selections to make sure to see if we can find cost reduction, as well to making sure that what we're selecting works for the space and for the programs. Currently at the $37,000, we are specifying what we call these Samsung frames televisions. They, when they're not used as a television, they can be used as a picture frame. So they go very nicely aesthetically in the spaces. And this is for any screens smaller than 90 inches. And then for the larger screens will be this mostly frameless screen. And tonight we have James Whitberry from Block Construction here to answer any questions. And James, do you have anything else to add?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jane. No, I don't have anything further to add. I thought you did a very good job presenting this information, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, James. So I'm going to briefly go over the locations of the projectors and where the new monitors will be. So for the Great Hall will be, originally there were 3 projectors that are proposed here. As you can see, the screens are the bigger triangles, and then these little small little boxes are the projectors. So imagine if we were to hang the projectors low, it's actually going to be a little bit lower than this because of the lights fixtures that's going to be there. There will be bracing, these triangular bracing that's going to come out. So that's very intrusive and not quite probably aesthetically what we're looking for. Instead, what we're proposing here is 5 TV monitors. On the back walls, there'll be 3 86-inch monitors. And on the 2 side walls, there'll be 2, 1 each on each side, 96-inch monitors. Here is the art classroom. So here you go. A projectors is proposed on the east wall. And what we're proposing here is adding 3 65-inch monitor on the west wall, spread out so everybody from different side of the art classroom can view the screens. And then here are the 2 classrooms. As you can see here and here, And what we're proposing is a 75-inch TV on this wall here and next to storage for that classroom. And then for this lower classroom will be a 75-inch monitor here. Next item is engineered wood flooring. So engineered wood flooring has.
Before we move on,
Yes, Vice Mayor Patton.
I have to go through the mayor.
Oh, sorry. Mayor, is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, just as a matter of monitors versus projectors, I think I speak for the entire subcommittee, that we were really, I'd say, mad about this whole thing, that we felt monitors should have been recommended to begin with instead of projectors as far as technology and everything else. So it was exceptionally disappointing to all of us on the subcommittee when this was brought forth after the fact and as a, a change order. So we are happy with the monitors, but we hire experts, we hire architects and builders and stuff, and this stuff should have been presented. I mean, supposedly they've built recreation centers before. And so it was disappointing to all of us. We're glad we're at this point and it will hopefully not delay. And we thank you, staff, for looking into further cost savings along these lines. So thank you very much. But some of these changes that come up really, we bring in architects and builders and stuff. We hope they advise us well to begin with. And it's very frustrating. So I just had to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, engineer hardwood flooring. So engineer hardwood flooring was chosen for the Great Hall during design with the understanding that the Millbrae Lions Club volunteers will be installing the flooring to offset the extra costs as a contribute in-kind donation, which is the labor that they would be doing the labor to install it. It is an upgrade from luxury vinyl tiles or laminate flooring originally included in the project. Staff was recently informed that the Lions will not be available to volunteer this installation work. So the net cost to furnish and install the flooring by the contractor is $146,000. The floor boxes within the room, so these are the electrical boxes and AV input boxes, have been set to the thickness of the proposed engineering wood floor. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council authorize City Manager to execute a change order with Block Construction, increasing the contingency amount to cover this work. The funding for this will be covered by unspent additive alternate funding for kitchen appliances that have already been accounted for in the contingency. So the our project budget included $450,000 in additive alternates, and part of that $150,000 was originally for kitchen appliances, but we've already included that cost in the contingency of the project. So we now have this $150,000 that can be used here. So potential schedule impact, the flooring has a very long lead time. It will not impact the opening date, which we're set for early June, so that camps can start the second week of June. However, it will impact the use of the room until flooring is installed. So we'll work with the camps to move them around as needed, if needed. So next item is specimen trees. So there are 3 specimen trees that are proposed for this project. One in the arrival court, one in the preschool play yard, as well as one in the fitness center. So we'll be talking about these 3 trees here tonight. I also put a dot on this tree right here, and I want to inform the council that the Sister City Commission will be installing or planting a olive tree here at this corner of the Great Hall patio. So the vision, architect's vision for these 3 trees are large scale specimen trees, and what they picked out is the big leaf maple. So here in the center, you can see what a mature big leaf maple tree looks like. However, included in this project currently at the budget, it's a 24-inch big leaf maple, which looks like this picture on the left. Staff as well as subcommittee agrees that this is not the size of tree that would look well at these locations. We do recommend the big leaf maple for both the rival court and the preschool play yard. We're currently reaching out to different nurseries to locate larger big leaf maple trees and see where, what the cost and the availabilities. Specimen trees are estimated at about $20,000 to $30,000 each, and these are 60-inch box and above. So today we are we would like to amend the project budget by $80,000 so that we can go and find larger trees for these spaces, as well as the authority for town city manager to award the contract to a low bidder if that's needed to procure these trees. For one tree that we were not recommending big leaf maple is the tree over at the fitness terrace. We were working with a nursery that specializes in big specimen trees. And this is the tree we're recommending. It's a 60-inch box museum Palo Verde. So you can see the 60-inch box tree is quite large. So this is a person's height for reference. And we think this beautiful tree would look perfect at the fitness terrace. So construction schedule, looking here, their continued work on the site as well as the interior. Substantial completion is still set for early April and grand opening in early June. So in terms of the substantial completion is still April, but there are a couple certain elements that will not be installed by substantial completion due to long lead time, and certainly some of the minor changes that we're making here, such as the AV. So these things include windows coverings, the hardwood floor, and certain low voltage system. Particularly the low voltage system, the security system has an extremely long lead time due to materials shortage. Even though these items will be installed after substantial, the building can still reach its temporary occupancy status, allowing recreation program to begin in June. However, we may need to move the programs, in a separate room while contractor comes back and gets certain things installed. So we're still on the critical path timeline. In terms of current budget snapshot, construction is about 90% complete. We have about $2 million remaining on the 24.5 design build contract. We have encumbered about $2 million of the $2.3 million contingency funding, so that's 88%. And then the Swinnerton CMPM contract, we're spend about 92%. So we're over relatively, everything is in line in terms of budget and schedule. Here is a change order summary. So previously approved change orders 1.9 million. We're now at 2 million. We have 2 new change orders since last month. The first one's the window covering, which City Council approved at the last month's meeting, and then a level 3 charger pathway that we added, and that's $6,000. And we're reviewing several pending change orders right now. Included in here is the hardwood floor as well. Some good news here is we were keeping track of an alternate for the ERRCS system. So inspection was done by a third party hired by Block, and the report was submitted on January 12th to County Fires, and they have reviewed and approved and confirmed that a ERRCS system is not required. Therefore, this $150,000 line item, we would like to allocate this to the project contingency. So for tonight, the 4 actions is, or one action with 4 sub items is adopting a resolution authorizing a budget amendment to increase the project budget by $80,000 to purchase and install more suitable sized trees at the 3 specimen tree locations. B, the city manager or its designee to execute contract change order to the design build contract with Block Construction or awarded contract with a responsive and responsible low bidder to furnish and install 3 specimen trees up to $80,000. Authorize city manager is Destiny to execute contract change order, design build contract with block construction, increasing the contingency amount by not to exceed $146,000 for engineer hardwood installation, as well as increasing the project contingency amount by $150,000. And we're here to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Subcommittee member, Council Member Holliber.
Thank you. First of all, on this slide, just to clarify, when you say for Council Action D, increase project contingency amount by 150,000, that sounds like we're adding to the budget. But my understanding is we are not adding to the budget. I think it would be more accurate to say restore project contingency amount, because these are funds available now that we thought we had allocated to the ERRCS project. Is that accurate?
So the ERCS budget line item was outside of Block's contract, so that was never included. So this action, we would like to just increase the project contingency within Block's contract.
I think if I could help clarify, that's correct, Council. I mean,
that implies
just
a
trend
budget increase, which is not what we're doing.
No.
for the design bill, but the overall, it's taking from one line item and moving it into another line item for the overall budget.
Okay, so perhaps we can reword that as restore project contingency available funds by 150,000. Because it's really about what's remaining, right? The 270,000 remaining in contingency.
Right, you're right.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that.
Thank you.
So I review a lot of contracts, and the contingency usually, you're increasing contingency usually means you're increasing total contract. So, anyways, and then on the other, I think as Councilmember Pappen mentioned, or Vice Mayor Pappen mentioned, subcommittee, we weren't briefed about any of these changes until last week. We were very much surprised by all of them. I think she's already spoken about the monitors and how that was originally recommended to us by the architects, and then they changed their recommendation to monitors and projectors and others. So that was obviously frustrating. I think what was perhaps a bigger surprise was the hardwood flooring in the large banquet room, the Grand Hall. I think we had been told for about a year and a half now would be done by the Lions Club, by volunteers. And I love the Lions Club. Not trying to put them on the spot or anything, but that was a pretty big commitment that they had made, and pretty short notice now that they're not going to be doing it. So I'd like to ask, 3 of our council members are Lion members. I think our city manager is a Lion as well. If we could maybe make those connections with the Lions to see if there's a way that they could help make us whole here. If they can't volunteer on the hardwood flooring, is there something else they could provide? Perhaps landscaping that's maybe a little bit less of a specialized type of labor that could perhaps be done by volunteers rather than having Block have to do. And I know Block would have representatives on the call. And I know they have, probably have a lot of their subcontractors already lined up and ready to go. But this is obviously a big hole that we have now that the city has to fill. So if anything that the Lions can do to help make up that 150K. I think a part of that cost was we were going to have to pay anyways, right, for the material. So the actual value of the labor was about 50 or 60,000. My understanding. So I'm just putting that out there. Hopefully can help something else on this project.
Through the mayor, I was told Lion Bill Amanesco had gotten hurt. He redid our floor up here and he did a beautiful job, but he is not able to physically do it. So it was a set of unfortunate circumstances. And I know that the Lions feel horrible I'm sure we can go back and talk. The reality is, haven't had crab feeds in 3 years. You know, a lot of the fundraising mechanisms are just down. I feel horrible as a Lion for that, but I know they did not do it intentionally, and I know you know that. And it's a shame because Bill does beautiful work.
Well, I mean, it just puts us in a difficult position now with 4 months to go, less than 4 months before the opening, and it sounds like the flooring now won't be ready for the grand opening. So maybe we may have to postpone. I mean, we can open the building. We may have to postpone the grand opening ceremony if we want to be able to show off the whole building. Let's just say don't go in the in the grand hall. You can look in, but you can't walk.
Yeah, understood.
Are you finished, Councilmember Oliver?
Yeah, I'm done. That's all. Thank you.
Do you want to continue, Councilmember Schneider?
Sure. Thank you, Jane. And again, I heard about it through the grapevine, and then city manager gave me some more background. So again, as a Lion, I'm sorry. I think it was one of those things just out of our hands. My question is on the trees. Of course, love the trees. I don't know anything about that yellow tree, but it looks pretty, whatever the Palos Verde is. But I wondered if we have reached out to Outdoor Hardware Supply and see if they might want to partner and cover the cost of 1 or 2 on that. I haven't been to one of the fundraising committee meetings in a while, but I would love for us to strengthen our relationship with Outdoor Hardware Supply, and maybe that can help make up a little bit of the funding difference.
Is that it?
Yes.
Perfect. Good comment. Councilmember or Vice Mayor Pappen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and that is an excellent idea. Thank you, Councilmember Schneider. The trees, yes, I'm deeply concerned that once we decide on the trees or we get the trees in there, that they are protected. I mean, we've all seen kids go through parks and hang on, it's just, this is a huge investment. And we all know the wind that occurs in Millbrae. So I don't know if we can insure the trees or what, but I do want to make sure they have an opportunity to reach maturity and look great. That is very, very important. They are specimen trees. And for people who don't know, that means it's just a grand centerpiece here. And we really want them to be that way. Jane, some of the trees you showed, do they lose their leaves? Or is this going to be year round? Are we looking at that? Because that kind of does affect what happens here.
I believe the big leaf maple does or acts just like most maple trees. They turn their colors in fall and then they start falling for the winter. So those are the big leaf maples.
Well, we might want to consider, and I'm not a tree expert, but Councilmember Schneider has her hand up again. She probably knows more there, but something that's more year round that won't lose its leaves might be preferred here, because it then shows the spectacular nature of the tree throughout the entire year. So we should consider something that holds its leaves. And also you mentioned the fig tree. So we're going to have a fig tree that doesn't actually, I mean, not fig, but an olive tree that does not produce olives. So, because that can be a little messy too. But my primary concern, and I cannot be clear enough, is that whatever trees we get, they are protected. And however you do that, please make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you. I understand the Vice Mayor's point when the one thing about deciduous trees that drop their leaves, they bring in the colors, the bright, vibrant greens in springtime, the gorgeous reds and golds, but they also perform something that's called passive solar. So in the summertime, as they get bigger, they'll prevent sun from heating up the building, and that'll reduce air conditioning costs, electric costs. And then in the wintertime, they drop their leaves, which allow the sunlight in to heat the building. So often what you want on trees next to buildings that will provide that function, you want the leaves to fall off on that. And it's a form of passive solar. This is another example of how we can educate the public on their choices of plants and what it can mean in terms of your heating and cooling costs. So, and on top of it, those lovely maple leaves, the kids and anybody in an art class are just going to really enjoy those maple leaves because they just make great art projects, great wreaths, all kinds of things. Thank you.
Is that a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the whole packet.
Yes.
Yes, motion to approve the amendments as requested by staff. And funding, I don't have it in front of me. Sorry, Mayor.
Item number 10. Do we have a second?
As amended, correct? To what Ruben said, please.
What was that amendment? To the Lions Club?
No, D, increase project contingency as staff presented.
Yes.
It was almost like we're going to pay the builder more to be contingent.
That
So,
would, I think that was just on the report. So as far as the motion reads here, we don't have to amend the motion.
well, we do, because as action presented says increase project contingency amount.
Okay, gotcha.
Maybe use the word adjust because we're transferring money from one budget item to
I would say
another.
restore.
Restore.
I accept that. That's good.
I accept it too as a second.
Thank you. Could we have a vote, please?
I don't think we've taken public comment.
Ah, Ruben, thank you
Sorry,
for helping me once again. Out to lunch tonight. I don't see anybody. Usually the hands come to the beginning, right?
Yeah, but there aren't too many members of the public in that list. It's almost all staff.
I look for the hand. Okay, so I don't see any public comment. So may we call for the vote, please?
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Oliver.
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The City Council approves agenda item number 10 with the noted amendments suggested by Councilmember Oliver related to the project contingency amount language by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, guys, we have one more item. Please hang in there. And this will be our last business item. And that would be, we moved consent item number 6, adopt a resolution approving the second amendment to the employment agreement with City Manager Tom C. Williams. And we are going to do that now under new business. And Tom, what we would like to do is do you have a plan here that you would like to present forward to us?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, Tom Williams, City Manager. You know, as we discussed during my annual review, this city, we've realized great improvements and much success over the last year. I'd like to thank the City Council, for the teamwork, the open lines of communication, as we continue to work on improving all aspects of the organization, the municipal functions, both physically and operationally. I'd also like to thank the great staff and the organization that we have, and also like to thank members of the community, that the volunteerism in the city of Millbrae is top notch and one of the best that I've ever witnessed in my over 35 years of experience. And before I get into to my focus area this year, I would like to just highlight some accomplishments, starting with, managing through COVID-19. And I mentioned the volunteerism and the staff, and the city's done an incredible job maintaining all operations and services. We've had some significant development projects, the TOD2 project, for example, that we just haven't missed a beat. We've kept pace with the developer and the contractor. We're able to bring in the right level of expertise and licensed professionals to manage that project on behalf of the city and keep that on schedule for opening, this summer of 2022. Also, face mask giveaways through the Lions Club, the Millbrae Cultural Committee, just volunteers that we would stand out in the parking lot as people would drive by, and we would have extensions, to hand out masks. And the amount of volunteer effort and financial resources to purchase those masks on behalf of the community. So, the whole COVID-19 experience has really been a community coming together in the city of Millbrae, and I'm very, very proud of that effort. Obviously, as we went through tonight, we were able to creatively finance and find a way to, get the rec center started and under construction, knowing that, we were facing escalated costs, somewhere between 3% and 4%. We would have never guessed that it would have been as high as, what was it, 300% increase in lumber last year and materials costs. So, we never projected it would be that expensive. But getting the ball rolling and getting the recreation center financed, another great accomplishment, and keeping that on schedule. I mean, we heard a little bit of a headache, tonight on some things, but that's part of the design build process. As you remodel the kitchen or a bathroom or anything, these types of decision points are just part of the process. And again, just as important, we've properly scoped the general plan and the downtown specific plan that includes an assessment and analysis of our infrastructure impacts, keeping pace with what those costs are, and identifying how, when we build out and we reach our arena numbers of 2,300 housing units as our housing element will provide for, we have the infrastructure identified that's necessary to carry that new population and that demand. We've negotiated the successful land transfer from BART, something that I thought would take several months, took a year and a half, but such an important and critical element and piece of the puzzle to get the west side of the transit area built out properly, to increase the land availability, to get the property transferred so we can extend California Drive as always envisioned and adopted in the 1998 station area specific plan. So, that is probably misunderstood by a lot of members of the community, but a very important negotiation to get that property transferred from BART to the city. Led the scope and process that I think is also just as important with the increase in homelessness or the unhoused, some crime increases that we, over the last 2 years, have been able to, identify that the issue with a lot of the unhoused and crime comes from BART, as BART sweeps the train as Millbrae's the inline station, but figuring out how we can fund through county HSA to social service workers, through Life Moves. We're in the second month of that process. I'd like to thank Supervisor Dave Pine for his contribution from the county, $100,000 to that program. But so far, the monthly reports, the last 2 monthly reports, we've seen significant progress. And here at the end of the third month, into the first quarter of the program, we will be providing the council with an update. We launch our wastewater recycling plan. We were able to obtain $800,000 in design grant funding from the federal government through Congresswoman Spears' office. We envision the land use change to, incorporate life science and biotech on the east side of the transit station south of Millbrae Avenue. We worked hard to just diligently, day in and day out, recruit companies like Lucid Automotive, get outdoor supplied hardware, leased in the vacant Orchard Supply Hardware, working with San Francisco Water Company. We've led improvements to, accessibility to the public and greater outreach through COVID, as we've been open every single day, not physically open to the public, but open for business. We've invested in software such as Bluebeam and having the ability for, applicants and homeowners to submit their building permits without missing a beat. So we've accomplished quite a bit. It's in Majority of it is in the staff report. So I think due to time, I will move into, what the focus is in 2022. And although we remain busy and we're going to continue to get busier on the economic development side and land development side, but as we've kind of launched that, and I think people know that Millbrae is open for business, and we've had successes there, it's now time to look at the organization itself, kind of look internally and continue to get us healthy. And the focus really is to make these organizational improvements, right-size the organization, improve our service internally as well as externally, and meet the expectations of staff as well as the community that we serve. And so what I proposed to the council in the highest priority in the work plan and delivery is to, conduct an organizational analysis. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to bring in an interim human resources director to help with the needs of our employees. Because of the decline in our revenue, as it directly has resulted in the pandemic, I had Mike Sung, who had 8 years of human resources experience in a previous employer, as well as finance, kind of as a Band-Aid solution, have him take over some of the HR functions in the interim until we could get healthy with our revenue. And Mike's done a fantastic job, and I thank him for wearing both of those hats. But I think now, given the fact that we're starting to improve economically, we need to focus our attention to right-sizing the organization and to actually formalize our human resources function. I think that is well-deserved and something that our staff internally is a service area that we can improve upon. But as we move forward here, immediately, I'd like to conduct an organizational analysis, bring in an outside consultant to help us do that, establish a set of core values that will help provide stability within the organization, both, again, internally and externally, core competencies that each leader, manager, within the organization, including myself, will continue to cultivate and refine, build capacity and skill levels, within our staff and our leadership group, to examine and evolve both as individuals and as a team, and use the consultants to help coach and advise the leadership team. And then within our organizational structure, concurrent with that first item, I'll commence, depending on what that outcome is, and it may be hiring a full-time human resources director, which I think, in our discussion, we have found is probably the most significant hole within the organization that hasn't been funded. We know that we have a vacant city engineer public works director with the retirement of Key Lim. That recruitment is in process. So that's moving forward, but that is a budgeted position. So the human resources director would be an unbudgeted position. And the city is not, at least in discussing this with our city attorney, it's been many, many decades since the city has had a formalized human resources department and function that can assist in training and employee benefits and coaching and if somebody wants to launch a grievance, where do they go? How do they do it? And we need to formalize that function. So I'd like to build capacity within organizational structure concurrent with that first item, but also as a result and one of the outcomes of the analysis that we will conduct as part of the organizational function or analysis in that first phase. And then I think what's important, and in my mind, has been lacking because we have been going fast and furious, right? I mean, we've been in survival mode. I mean, we have been growing. There's a lot of demands. We've been short-staffed, doing more with less. But leadership and development, we can't forget about training and providing that training opportunity for our employees. And so that would be the third focus, kind of within this program that I would like to introduce. And I know, speaking with the council, during my review process is something that the council has agreed to, and actually good conversations with all of you on not only technical training, but customer service training, communication, and leadership, to continue to build the staff that we have and, make all of us better in terms of the organization. So I did submit a memo to the city council. It is part of the staff report, and in short, to summarize everything in these tasks with this high priority, I'd like to engage a consultant to perform the organizational analysis, perform and complete the organizational study, and present that analysis and results to the city council. Again, this is to build capacity to help identify and prioritize our funding in terms of our operations and our organization, and then develop and implement an organizational success plan. I'd like to do that from now, after this evening, through midsummer. And then, as I mentioned, move forward immediately to hire an interim HR director as we go through this process. And if the findings of the organizational assessment dictate that that is a hole that we must fill, make that a priority and bring that to the council for budget adoption as part of our operational budget. And then employee training. And as part of that is also draft an employee training and development program. And I'd like to do that starting now through, again, midsummer. So with that, Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions. That kind of sums up our accomplishments and my priority work program coming into 2022 through midsummer.
Thank you, City Manager. I think that with anything that's been growing as quickly as we have in Millbrae in a great direction, there comes hiccups, and it's a push and pull. But I think it's really important what you recognize, that our staff is so important to us, and so are you. We want you to succeed along with them, and the fact that everybody would take an opportunity to grow as a person in their career or in their passion. I'm going to use the passion. Your job is your passion, is so important. And I think we could all attest that, we all make mistakes. We all have hurdles. We all have hiccups, but we all have the best interest in mind, and that's to make Millbrae the best. And, I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate your hard work. And and along with all the staff that you have behind you. So I'm looking forward to watching the coaching and the growth of everybody. And I'm hoping that it can include council even at some point, because we have great progress that's just around the corner. Well, you've already acknowledged a lot of it that we've already succeeded in, but what's around the corner is it's going to be amazing, and we have to do it together. So in order for us to do it together, this step means a lot to me, and I think to our council. And I thank you for jumping on board and growing the staff on the inside, because that old saying, when you're green you grow, and when you're ripe you die. And I want to grow. I want to see this city just flourish. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your opportunity of growth for everybody. And thank you for making this report easy on us to say, hey, I want to still be here, and I want to still help with everything that's going forward. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Williams. And thank you to staff. I mean, we really need to acknowledge these past 2 years has been very, very stressful, and so many new and unanticipated things have been going on here. So thank you for working with us. We do want our city to be the best, and the organization to be the best it can be. And I really appreciate your willingness to bring in somebody to look at the organization to see how we all can improve. And I'm sure there'll be comments about how the city council can improve too. That's fine. But I think really defining what expectations are for everybody at every level reduces stress, and hopefully we get more accountability and transparency. So just to make it easier on everybody and move forward in a positive manner, that's what we're trying to do here. So we are hopeful that that will happen and the city can reach its greatness as all the employees do too. So thank you again for working with us all and helping support the city. And I do think we have a lot of great things happening in the future. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much. These are never easy, but I do think we have potential to really succeed. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager. As Mayor last year, I can verify what incredible work and work ethic of Tom and of staff, especially as we reopened and then had to go back and forth and back and forth. For the public, you need to realize, and I would say for our assemblymen and senators up in Sacramento, as they give us even more things to have to do, just stop and let us catch up a little bit. But it was an incredible year. It wasn't until the state of the city, it's like, wow, we forgot half the things that we did that other cities did not get done. I mean, we got an amazing amount of work done. Tom got amazing amount of work, staff did. And it was an amazing year for me as mayor. I can say thank you, and I can wish Annie, Mayor Oliva, the best of luck, because we're still in COVID and it's still adding all kinds of problems, but good year going forward. I wouldn't be me if I didn't say, I hope when we bring in the training, which I know is customer service, that we also remember that climate change is now an aspect of everything all of us do, and we can feed that in and start looking for the funding for it. But thank you very much, Tom. Good luck, and good luck in 2022.
Thank you.
Councilmember Holliber.
Thank you. I agree with all of the comments that have been made, and I echo them. We have been very productive recently with everything that we've been doing with the general plan, with working on the various on our arena requirements, affordable housing requirements that were approved last year, and also all that we were able to do even with COVID and with probably the biggest distraction that we've had over my 8+ years on council, the CVRA and the transition to district elections. The biggest waste of time that the council has had to deal with, and our city staff has had to deal with over the last several months. So I'm glad to have that out of the way and look forward to being able to work more on some of the key responsibilities that we have governing our city. And I appreciate the city manager being introspective, and I think we've come up with a good plan for how we will work to improve our staff and improve the direction of the city in the coming years. So I think that I thank the city manager for that and for working so well with us as a council.
Thank you.
Perfect. Councilmember Fung, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tom, I wanted to thank you for your dedication to Millbrae. And most of the members of the public may not see some of the work that you do behind the scene here on a day-to-day basis. We all make after our phone calls and text message to Tom. We all did. I know I did for sure. And I still remember those late night phone calls and on tipped over porta potties, water main breaks. And, one time I called you late in the evening just to come down to Broadway to help an unhoused man, while he was shivering in cold winter night. So all the work and all the time that you dedicated to our city and, to everyone, I wanted to thank you for that. And knowing that running our city throughout the pandemic is no easy task. And, we're able to do more with less, with your leadership and be fiscally responsible. And that, I believe, will position our city very well for the growth that our future needs for us. And today, I'm going to say something a little different here. We just proclaimed International Women's Day. And so I wanted to take this opportunity and thank your wife, Julie, for allowing for her sacrifice, allowing you to dedicate so much of your time, including your family time, to our city, to all of us. Right. This is also something that we owe her a great deal of gratitude for. And so, and thanks all our staff as well for working through this difficult time, this last 2 years, pandemic. And I wholeheartedly believe that the extra HR director would be highly valuable here. And I look forward to right-sizing our organizations within our city as we plan forward. We got many great things that we wanted to accomplish in Millbrae. And I will say the increase of your salary is well-deserved, and it does not even come close to my appreciation to your work and your dedication to Millbrae. So thank you very much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, Anders, you win. Julie, thank you from all of us. We know we take a lot of that time, but that was very well said. So from comments on everyone, Joan, can you tell us what exactly we will be voting here, or what action we should be taking here?
Yes, I would be happy to frame the action for the council. After a very, I think, considered and thoughtful closed sessions with the city manager and going through a performance evaluation, which included filling out forms and by each council member, collating them, having them reviewed, discussed, considered, and talking about all the ways that we have achieved goals this past year and ways that we can be even better, as has been outlined by your city manager. The council has decided to propose an amendment to Tom Williams' employment contract. Just to give you brief background, Tom entered into an employment contract when he was first hired by the city at the end of the year in 2018. So his anniversary date is December. It was December in 2018 that he was brought on board. He has been with the city over 3 years. He has never received a salary adjustment, never, in over 3 years. The city employees have received salary increases. The leader of the employees has not. So the council has determined that what it would be an appropriate increase at this point in time is 10%. That will be written into his contract by way of a second amendment. And the second change that will be put in place is to extend his employment agreement, extend the term by 5 years. Those are the two actions that are set forth in the second amendment. It's a very short document, but for all the world to see, we're not hiding anything here. This is the record that is before the council for consideration, a resolution to approve the second amendment to the employment agreement between the city of Millbrae and Tom Williams.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Julie. We have you for another 5 years.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliber. I think we have a comment from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and council. Thank you for the kind words. I mean, we're a team, and to be successful, I'm proud to be part of the team and be a team member. I thank you for recognizing my wife, Julie, but I'm available to you and this city 24 hours, 7 days a week. So anything you need, keep the phone calls coming. It is not a burden at all. I'm a proud resident and member of the city of Millbrae, but more than anything, it's just teamwork, and it's a spirit of cooperation. It's the ability to communicate. And I thank you very, very much for the team spirit and the teamwork. So it is beyond words how I can explain my gratitude for that, but thank you.
Get to work.
Exactly.
Eduardo, could you please call for the vote?
Let's make sure there is no public comment.
Oh, geez, Louise, Oliva tonight is slipping on that.
I don't see anything, but I just wanted to be sure we called
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Joan. I don't see anything either.
Okay.
Okay. Eduardo, please.
Councilmember Schneider,
Aye.
Councilmember Holliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen, Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council adopts a resolution approving the second amendment to the employment agreement with the city manager, Thomas C. Williams. I vote
Thank you.
5-0.
Thank you. So tonight we have no new business, lots of business, no new business, and it is 10:52. So I am going to ask that we refrain from any council comments and adjourn this meeting. Excuse me, we have a vice mayor comment.
Yeah, so two things really quick. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Crime in our downtown business area has gone up in the last 2 weeks. It cannot be ignored. It is not acceptable. We have talked, and I think this council has budgeted for a downtown sheriff's officer. That I don't see that happening. We need to hold the sheriff's office accountable for this. This is not acceptable. Store operators are being assaulted, and just it's not acceptable. So we need an action plan, and this has to be resolved immediately. A secondary note, I hope that comes before this council is a resolution regarding something that's going on the ballot regarding recycling. So if anybody produces products in California, it has to be recycled material, because half the stuff we put in recycling is not. I've presented it to the city staff, and hopefully it will come for this council. A lot of cities have adopted it already. It's just, we can no longer have people producing things and it all goes into landfill. It's not recyclable. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna just end on one comment, a happy comment. Our council member, Anders Fung, was elected to the SAL board. So both of us to coattail a little bit on the sheriffs and our need for our engagement with them. You now have Anders Fung and myself on the Sheriff's Activity League. Welcome, Anders. All right, with that being said, I'd like to adjourn our meeting. Thank you, guys. Great work.
Thank you.